Big news, everybody. Hats are back in stock on sportingchancepod.com. Select t-shirts are $10 off and sticker packs are half off. Go get them while you can. And if you want a lurcher like we discuss on today's episode, head on over to Clover Creek Canine on Facebook and message our friend Sean O'Neill today. For your micro hawking and redtail supplies on the East Coast, visit mountainstatefalconrysupply.com. To get the tightest braided equipment on the market, visit midnightfalconry.com. And last but not least, to add a goshawk to your hunting arsenal, go on over to northmountaingoshawks.com today to put in your order for next year's hunting partner. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Sporting Chance podcast. Today, we are joined by outdoorsman from, forgive us, Roy, because we're probably going to butcher this, from the UK. I guess that's safe to say.
That's a safe one. Yeah, you're okay with that one. Yeah.
Roy Lupton from the UK. And for those of you out there, you might be familiar with him from the Field Sports channel on YouTube. Is it Field Sports Britain or Field Sports UK?
It goes under all sorts of different guises. So that's either or is fine.
Okay. And Roy is a falconer amongst many other things. It's really awesome to have you on today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation.
You were a highly requested guest from quite a few different people were sending me your info. So you got to get him on.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how much I have to pay people to keep doing that for me.
It gets expensive.
100%. It's like, make me popular.
So how long have you been into falconry?
Into falconry? Oh, crikey. I started when I was 9 and I'm now 50. So there you go. Okay. A little while. So
wow.
Longer than I care to remember.
And who got you into falconry?
I don't know. It was just a deep fascination from, as far back as I can remember. I remember being in school, in a school assembly, and just looking out the window and watching a kestrel just hovering above the sports playing field, and just absolutely fascinated with birds of prey. It was just something that bugged me. And we used to have, or we still do, lots of country fairs and things like that. And they used to have sort of falconry displays and what have you. Whenever I went to one of those, and it was always sort of drag mum and dad over and go and look at the birds of prey, watch the birds of prey. And it really sort of just stemmed from there. So in the family background, my parents didn't come from a hunting, shooting, or falconry background. My dad used to do a little bit of rifle shooting from the sort of military side of things, but not, as I say, not from a hunting perspective. So I was certainly the oddball of the family at that time.
Interesting. So what was your first bird that you got?
First bird was a tawny owl. Not really much use for falconry, but it was fun. And again, that was, got that as a chick. I didn't know anywhere near enough about it. I mean, what our laws and legislation is very different over here compared to the rules and regs that you guys have got to go to. So there's no apprenticeship scheme over here, apprenticeship system. You've got to sort of try and find your own way, and then get involved in some of the clubs or the more reputable clubs and work your way up like that, and hope that somebody will come along and give you a bit of a guiding hand or offer assistance. But I got hold of a young tawny owl, reared that up, started training it just to come back to the fist, and then very, very quickly moved on to a common buzzard. I still had the tawny owl and kept that for many years as well, but and then started out with a common buzzard. But common buzzards, unlike your redtails, are not really much use. They'll catch rabbits and stuff in the wild, but when you're trying to use them in a falconry or from a falconry standpoint, they really are a sort of a poor cousin of the redtail.
Has anyone had any success with a common buzzard?
Yeah, I think a few people have caught bits and bobs. I mean, we used to go out and catch, the odd sick rabbit. Back then we had a lot of myxomatosis and stuff. And, we'd occasionally, catch one that was just starting with mixy or whatever else. And, it was not great sport. It really wasn't. But I think, again, looking back, I think if you revisited it with a fresh mind and knowing what you were doing, then you could probably make a reasonable, bird out of it. For catching a few rabbits and stuff out of trees or whatever else. Then, you could probably do a far better job than we did as kids with them.
Interesting. So now, for the American listeners, it's going to be a little interesting. So if you wanted to fly one, and somebody in your neck of the woods said, "Hey, I want to fly one," it would be, you could get one, but it would be illegal to trap one.
100%. Yeah. Everything over here, all of the birds that we have access to have got to be captive bred. So yeah, completely illegal for us to go and take anything from the wild. So yeah, the only access we have to any bird of prey is through captive breeding.
Now, is that something that was taken away from you at one point? Did you guys ever have that opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, and there has been cases of wild take, but obviously, before captive breeding became possible, and we figured out how to do it. Then, obviously we did have wild take. I can't remember when we lost that, but it was there in the past, and there have been occasional licenses granted for wild take for a few birds since then. But as I say, trying to get that now is incredibly difficult.
So it's kind of past the point, where you guys could all band together and show the data, the science, and get that passed to have that come back. It's probably not going to happen, right?
Again, I think a few people would like to see it happen, and I think from we're just going through a very I say difficult time. We've got our everything that we do with the falcons or with the birds of prey is heavily legislated by CITES, and so we have to jump through their hoops, regarding the registration and what we do, what we can do, what we can't do, and they're covered also by the Wildlife and Countryside Act. And yeah, it does make it very awkward and very onerous with what you need to do and how how we address things. And again, it's affecting the whole game at the moment, because we're going through a bit of a reboot, if you like, from the CITES Secretariat, in that I'm a commercial breeder of falcons as well. So for us to export to the Gulf market, we're now having to, come more within line of their wishes. In that we're, all of the breeders over here that are wanting to export are currently going through the CITES registration program. That's got to be done within the next 2 years, so we're then compliant. So again, it's a lot of red tape at the moment, but again, that's part and parcel of the game.
Okay, so where exactly are you located in Europe? Not like the general area.
We need your address.
I'm now. I was in the southeast, and now we're sort of southwest. So. Which to you guys that would be a hell of a long distance, but for us it's only a few hours. So I'm located just down in the sort of lower end of Hampshire.
Okay, but in that region, you're allowed to just purchase, like anybody. You don't need a license, nothing like that. You could just purchase a bird of prey, correct?
Yeah. So throughout the UK, you can just go and buy a bird of prey. So yeah, you're more than entitled to, go and buy anything from a kestrel to a golden eagle. Okay. But then to export a bird to another country, it becomes like a yeah. But you still, I mean, all of those birds will have, or certain birds will have a CITES Article 10 documents, and some of them have got registration documents as well. So obviously that traces them. But yeah, it's more from, when you were talking about taking from the wild, then that's very, very heavily legislated now. So it's not necessarily the purchasing of the birds, but it's proving their provenance and making sure that everything is captive bred and comes from where it is meant to do. So there's a lot of operations, police operations at the moment, going through breeding establishments, looking for illegal peregrines or peregrines that have supposedly or could have been taken from the wild. So, and again, I think you get this with a lot of the authorities all over the world. They get what we call over here peregrinitis. And it's a fantastic flagship bird for them to go and do fundraising and prove their point. So yeah, again, I think we're just sort of running through that time again at the moment.
Got it.
Did you know that it's basically impossible for us in the United States to import a bird from anywhere else?
No. It's not an easy game, no.
No, it's the restrictions we have here on that are just absolutely crazy. Yeah, so let's say I wanted to buy a bird from you. We're both permitted to do it in our countries. I would have to apply for the permit to import the bird when I already own the bird. So I would have to buy the bird from you.
Yeah.
You would have to house the bird for me.
Right.
And then they may or may not even approve that. And the process could take a year or more.
Wow.
For them to even approve that. So you're housing the bird, feeding the bird, caring for the bird that I've purchased for a year or more. And then the bird gets imported over here. They have facilities where they quarantine the bird. So the bird would have to sit in quarantine, I think 90 days or something, Casey.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's species specific, I would imagine. But yeah, it could be like some ridiculous amount of time being handled by who knows who, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it basically just becomes impossible unless you're like, I would imagine the only way it could possibly work is if like you were teamed up with somebody.
Yeah.
And like, they were like on your team to help you and you were helping them in some way. And, because like, there's horror stories all the time of, you pay for a pair of hawk eagles or something and you get like this disaster when they finally arrive a year and a half later and they're like,
beaten to hell.
Beaten to hell. They'll never breed, won't be worked with. It's essentially impossible. And I think that's by design.
Yeah.
That's why you will rarely see American falconers with anything other than a native species.
Okay. But I've seen a few more Albertus gosses and things like that being flown over there. Is that? I mean, I take it or you've got your own breeding foundation stock for those now.
It's the original stock that was brought in 30 years ago that is still here. And then, like you mentioned, tawny owls. I don't believe that there's any tawny owls in the country, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think there is, right, Aaron? Tom would know.
Yeah.
But I don't. There might be some in zoos. Zoos operate on different rules than falconers do.
Yeah.
But if you notice, you don't see martial eagles, crowned eagles, hawk eagles, any kind of South American like the Chilean blue eagles, things like that.
Yeah,
never see those here.
They're here. They're here, but when the stock dies off, then it's over.
Yeah, and there's nobody producing crowned eagles here. There's, I think, 2 people producing African hawk eagles, but they're producing them in the single digits every year. Black eagles, things like that. So we have it made in the respect that we can go trap a redtail, for instance, or a native goshawk. But as far as exotic birds, we have a very difficult time getting those.
No, that's a shame. That is a shame. And what are your rules and regs over there now regarding golden eagles? Can you captive breed them yet, or is that?
That's a whole. Oh wow, that's funny. So believe it or not,
Aaron's going to go off on a 30-minute rant now.
So, Roy, I live in Casey and I both live in the eastern United States, so it's not really conducive to flying a golden eagle here.
Right.
We don't have the wide open spaces that you need to have them. There are some people that have wild caught golden eagles that make the trip out west to hunt jackrabbits. But in the United States, we have the Eagle Protection Act because our national mascot is the bald eagle. Yeah. And the golden eagles have been roped into that. And it's a very complicated issue that I'm really not an expert on, but I know enough to know that there's only one facility in the United States that can breed eagles, breed native eagles, and it's the Comanche Native Americans in Oklahoma.
Right.
No one else can breed golden eagles in captivity. I have a friend of mine that has a 20-year-old disabled golden eagle that he uses for education, and she lays eggs every year, and the eggs just have to get thrown in the trash because it's illegal to breed them. So we're working on that. We're hoping that we can get something passed, because you could justify to me why they wouldn't want you to trap birds out of the wild, right?
Yeah,
I wouldn't agree with it, but the logic is there. I could get your argument. Okay, we're taking a precious resource from the wild. We need to leave them in the wild. I get that. I don't agree with it, but I could understand how someone would make that argument. But you will never be able to argue why you can't breed, especially a disabled bird, a bird that's in rehabilitation or something like that, that could never go back to the wild. Why can't that bird be productive and produce captive born chick for falconry purposes? So the only golden eagles that you will see in America flown for falconry are wild caught, and they only issue, I think, 6 permits a year in the entire country to trap those.
And that isn't that meant to be from depredation as well? So they've got to be proven to be
It has to be from depredation, and it's only from the state of Wyoming. So there's some sheep farms in Wyoming, and those ranchers there want to help falconers get golden eagles. So falconers come out and do studies and document depredation on lambs. Right. And when they can prove that there's depredation on lambs at their ranch, the U.S. government will issue a permit for that ranch to allow a falconer to come trap a golden eagle from that ranch.
Very interesting.
Very system.
Aaron, question for you, because Aaron knows more about the eagle stuff than I do. But on the Comanche reservation, can they fly the birds like for falconer if they wanted to?
I believe they can, but they're not falconers.
Right, but are they breeding them just for feathers and things like that, for headdresses and what have you? Or
yeah. So as far as I know, no falconers have gotten an eagle from them.
Right. Okay.
What if you? So we don't know. This is a good question for them. That might be an interesting conversation. But because there's no rules about like who you can marry and stuff like that. So like, what if a young falconer went and got himself a beautiful squaw, and became, you know what I mean? Like that's valid. Yeah. And he gets adopted into the tribe. He just he just flies all the birds he wants. He can fly a bald eagle. But are you allowed to leave the reservation with it though? Like, can you go to a NAFA meet with it?
I think it's a moot point, because I don't think they're letting go of they will sell you an eagle. They'll sell you, and you can't buy it. They could not. I don't know if they could legally sell you a golden eagle, but you can buy an exotic eagle from them, because they do breed those. It'll just cost you about $20,000.
Now, is it more expensive or less expensive than the other breeders?
They're the only game in town on some of this stuff.
Can you barter with them with various
pelts and seashells,
pelts and beads and trinkets? Stupid joke, everybody! Don't cancel us. It's just a joke.
People are very sensitive over here, Roy. How about over there?
I mean, people still get butthurt over here, and it seems to be a lot more as well now. So it's you do have to be. Well, I say you do have to be. They would like us to be more politically correct. Although I'm old school, so I do struggle with that one. But
they can save it. They can keep it. We'll keep our jokes.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Yeah, it's you got to have a bit of play with it, haven't you?
So you guys have a group of people there that you call on your channel antis.
Yeah.
And for those of you out in America that are listening, antis that's short for anti-hunting, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's and they're unfortunately it's an extreme group of people that are not overly large in number. Not overly large in number, but they have got a very loud voice for the number of people that they have got. And again, they can be very divisive in the way that they go about things, and they tend to play the game better than we do, because they've got nothing better to do with their time, so they push themselves to get into positions in government, and in positions where they can have an effect. And I think that's something that we've got to be careful of as countrymen and sportsmen, as falconers, we need to be aware that we need to smarten up and understand the game a little bit more, understand the political game a little bit more. And I think that's where we've been lacking.
Now, does that involve appeasing them, or are you saying?
No. And this is, again, this is something that I struggle with, because a lot of people, when we televise the hunting, with what we're doing on Field Sports Channel and what we've done on Field Sports Channel for the last 13 years or so, people say, we shouldn't publicise the fact of what we do. We shouldn't make a song and dance about what we do. And my viewpoint is, as long as it's respectful for the quarry, as long as you are showing reverence to what you're doing, and it is done with the animal welfare, or the animal's welfare put at the forefront, and you're trying to show best practice, or you are showing best practice, then I think we should celebrate it, and I think we do need to be more vocal about it, and allow people just to see what does go on and see what happens, so they can they can then make their mind up from an educated point of view, not just from being lambasted by the naysayers.
You have a strong culture of field sports in the UK.
Yeah.
And it seems like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it's the trend over there is moving away from the strong culture that you guys have.
Yeah.
Just in general, not just in field sports, just in general.
I think the biggest problem that we all face is that people are not connected with their food anymore. And that, our rural communities are not rural communities anymore, because we have people moving from the inner cities out to the countryside, and again, they come out and they don't necessarily want to integrate. They don't necessarily want to understand and realize the culture of the people that they've moved with, or moved into our homes or into our countryside. They don't want to enjoy it in the same way that we do. And they've got they have very different values and a very different mindset, because they've just not been exposed to that. And again, it's wholeheartedly, it is just down to, not realizing, how the food chains work, not realizing where the food comes from, not realizing, how farming works, not real, and because we're all integrated. Hunting works hand in hand, with farming practices. We put, whether we're game hawking or we're putting partridges down on farmland, or we're planting game cover strips on there, and leaving margins for hares and wild partridge or whatever else. It's all part and parcel of it. It's all part and parcel of the hunting scene.
Casey and I experienced that as well. Casey's from the city, the suburbs, the city, but he respects that. He respects the way of life.
Yeah.
I didn't belong there. Yeah, I was raised there. And then me and my wife, we were like, all right, we were ready to buy a house. And we're like, all right, if we're going to buy a house, I'm not going to buy it around here. I'm going to buy it somewhere with some space. So I moved about an hour away into the countryside. And I'm like, this is heaven. There's agriculture everywhere. There's state land all over the place. And then, you're out flying your bird, and you got the city guy who just bought, some mini mansion out there calling the cops on me because I'm flying my bird and I'm running a dachshund. One dachshund, one bird. The guy calls the police.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want me to be there. And I'm like, it's like 100% some guy from New York City that moved out into the country, and now he doesn't want to see that. Bro, imagine moving into an area and then trying to impose your own beliefs on everybody that's been living there. It's it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the cops came, and I told the cops, he was asking for my ID and stuff. This is probably illegal, but I could care less. I told him, I'm not giving you anything. I will not be harassed, and I'm not doing anything wrong. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I mean? Then I went back to my car that was hidden. I parked it in a little hiding spot. I get there, and there's 4 cop cars around my car, and they were all super, super nice. Yeah. They're like, oh, we deal with this all the time. The city people, they come up here, they buy country homes, and they just make our lives a living hell because they don't know how things work around it. They hear a gunshot, during deer season and they call the police like there's a like somebody just got shot. You know what I mean? It's like it's hunting season. Relax. It's just ridiculous. You know.
Yeah. And
I'm glad to hear that it's not just here that we deal with that, because it's apparently it's all over the world now, I guess.
Yeah. No, it is culture. You know, the country culture is changing, isn't it? You know, and it's you know, although, and again, we've just got to try and educate, but it's so difficult to educate, especially when they come from a closed mindset. You know, and you talk to these people, but they're just so ensconced. You know, and we're seeing it more and more now. We've got, you know, more TV personalities that are sort of backing these conservation groups and what have you. And you know, it just cements their position. And trying to talk to these people and trying to have a reasoned debate it just seems like you're bashing your head against a brick wall half the time.
Well, because they won't. From our experience over here, is the issue is not having the argument with them. It's the fact that they refuse to see logic.
Yeah.
It's literally just math, science, and biology. You know, like we're removing X amount from the population to make room for the rest because of human encroachment. Like it all just like makes sense on like a mathematical format, and they just can't, like they won't justify killing an animal in any way. Like they won't even yield any type of position in that. So it's really difficult, like you said, to argue with them. But now this is one thing I want to ask you about, because over here we have rules where if I'm out flying my bird, and he called the police, he has a right to call the police, that's fine. But if he were to try to interfere with me hunting, there's rules that would protect me from that. Okay. Do you guys have that? Because I just remember this one video of this woman that didn't want to watch the fox hunt. And there was a bunch of hounds and a bunch of guys on horses. And you probably know exactly what video I'm talking about. And he jumps the fence and she like wouldn't move out of his way. And like the horse just smashed into her and she went flying. And it was so satisfying to watch. But like in America, like if she was trying to impede the hunt, she could get arrested for that because there's rules again. But in Europe, is there rules like that or no?
No, again, we have to, if we're out shooting, so if we're out with firearms, whatever else, and we do get confronted, then, you know, we obviously have to, put our guns away, put everything away, you know, and deal with it in the best way possible, and try and de-escalate the situation, and try and move away from it, because, you know, it would be very easy over here if we did end up, you know, with any sort of confrontation or argument, for the authorities to then revoke our gun licenses and take our firearms licenses from us. So, you know, from a shooting side, then no, you've got no real rights with that. It's you just got to sort of pack up and move on. I mean, there's rules, you know, there's trespassing rules, but the problem is if they're on the ground, if they've come onto a private hunting land, and are harassing you on private hunting land, yes, you can report it to the police. Or if they've come off a footpath, you can report it to the police. But it's how the police then deal with that situation. That you've, as I say, it's always best just to de-escalate and try and get out of the situation.
And you all have lost a lot of field sports at this point due to legislation, correct?
I mean, obviously, we lost fox hunting. That was the sort of first, the first chink in the armor that got taken. And again, we knew that they would try different ways to maneuver and put pressure on. So they're trying lots of different ways to make it more difficult. So they're trying to have a go, they're trying to push towards driven pheasant shooting, which is obviously a very big pursuit over here. So we've got lots and lots of estates that put down an awful lot of pheasants, for driven shooting, and that's a hugely followed and traditional pastime as well. But so they're trying from the legislative aspect to try and stop that and reduce hunting and stop hunting in certain areas, and on certain trust grounds within the UK as well. So I mean we're seeing pressure coming from all over the place. I mean we're still we're still doing okay, and we're still sort of holding our head above water and fighting it off. It just seems like a constant battle. It coming from one direction, you sort of mute that one, and then another one turns up.
Now, is there a legal take of fox at all, or can you just not do the traditional fox
You
hunt?
can't do the traditional, so we can still shoot foxes. So there's no problem with going out lamping foxes, shooting them with night vision, shooting them with thermal or whatever else. But yeah, not pursuing them with dogs. The same as you can't pursue deer with dogs. You can't pursue. We've got a few wild boar, but you can't pursue wild boar. So at the moment, it's only in the UK. It's only rats and rabbits that you can pursue with dogs.
So it's basically just like a public perception that is basing all of the changes to the legislation, basically.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But we've got to be very difficult. Well, sorry, we've got to be very careful with a lot of this legislation because, when they brought in the ban on fox hunting with dogs, it came in with not just encompassing foxes, but encompassing mammals, or a lot of mammals, and that then could have had wide-ranging effects on how we could have, or working our dogs from a falconry perspective as well. So again, that was a bit of a tricky one. And in Scotland, I think at the moment, you've got to be very careful on the amount of dogs that you're running up there as well. Just in case you could be seen to be having a pack of dogs running. Now,
with the loss of the fox hunting, this is very difficult to know the answer to, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Did you notice, this is a better question, did you notice that in one hunting tradition versus another, was there some sort of like infighting? Because we see it a lot here in the States where somebody, they're kind of a dork. They go out, they catch 2-3 ducks a year with their falcon, and they kind of think they're not a hunter. And they're like, okay, well, I think hunting bears with dogs is wrong. So I don't support that, but I kill ducks with a bird. So I'm somehow,
elevated to a higher position.
Right. Is that something that, like, do you think that part of the loss of the traditional, I don't know how many hundreds of years old tradition of hunting foxes with dogs was lost, could have been saved by other hunters banding together with them, or you think it was just it was going to happen?
No,
regardless?
Because when it was first proposed, we had a huge march in London, and it was sportsmen, whether they were involved in ferreting for rabbits, stalkers, game shooting fraternity, whoever, everybody came onto that march. We had there was a huge show, a countryside march to show our support for fox hunting. So everybody banded together. Everybody was showing that we were in full favour of it. But unfortunately, the government at the time, took no notice, didn't listen to it. Dumbed down the numbers of the people that did march in London, and just whitewashed it over.
Do you think people are emotional about that because of the dog involved in the hunt?
Sorry, say again.
Do you think that part of the reason that has went away? Because hunting otters with dogs was taken away, a good while ago, right?
Probably
not in our lifetimes.
Otters?
Right? Yeah, people would hunt. There was a big driven otter hunt with dogs. They had otter hounds.
It was otter hounds, so they would hunt. They would hunt a pack of dogs up the streams after otters. Yeah,
but the otters could just swim back under the water and go behind them. How does that even work?
Well, you get the guys going in the rivers with sticks and stuff as well. So they'd form a line if the dogs found an otter, and then worked it like that.
Oh, interesting.
So it was but again, and then we had the mink hounds as well. So the otter hounds went on to become mink hounds. That was still that was still very closely followed.
And I'm assuming that went away as well.
Yeah.
And so do you think that the association of a dog, is that the common denominator, is the use of dogs in pursuit of this game? Is that what it is?
It is. And they got, it's quite interesting because I see some of the videos that are made by aunties. and they come up with a lot of these sort of cartoon videos that they're putting out there, very emotive films and whatever else, and I really, it's the Disneyfication of animals that I've got a massive problem with. And they don't understand that nature is red in tooth and claw, and these animals have to fight for their survival every day. It's whether we're involved or not, then that battle continues. And I think what they don't like, and again, we've still got a lot of coursing that goes on, a lot of illegal coursing goes on for hares. So you've got a certain sex of guys that are going out still coursing.
Good.
Roy, sorry to interrupt you, but for those of you listening, and it's my first thought too, is when you say rabbit, you're not talking about hares. That's a totally
rabbit,
different.
Yeah. So
you have rabbits, which are the ones that dig warrens, and then you have hares, which are our jackrabbits that we have.
Jackrabbits, yeah. So you've got cottontails, haven't you? Which are rabbits,
which do not dig holes.
They'll dig. Okay. Right,
no, they'll move into holes dug by groundhogs.
Right. Okay.
But they will not dig their own holes. So So hunting rabbits with a dog is legal, but you cannot course hares with a dog.
But you can't course hares, no.
Didn't a famous boxer? I reached out to him. He didn't get back to me, but he's like mega famous. He's a big European boxer. He got caught coursing hare illegally.
Okay.
Did you not? You're not aware of that? I figured you would know something about it.
Which one was it?
I forgot his name. And the video was like, I'm watching the video and I'm, because like my whole algorithm on Facebook is just filled with people like just getting in fist fights or shootings and very, Ukrainians dropping, bombs on Russians with drones. So like my whole algorithm is this. So I'm watching the video and I'm watching this big guy. And I did a little training for a couple of years. I did karate. I did MMA for a little while. So I saw the way the guy was acting and moving, and I'm like, oh, there's something's about to happen right now. I'm about to watch something. And he was fighting with the police, not physically, but like argumentative. And he's like, just arrest me, mate. Just arrest me. And he's like going back and forth. I'm like, oh, they're about to fight right now.
I like your cockney. That's good.
You like that? But he's a world champion boxer in Europe. And he was going out with his buddies on the side to course hare, and somebody called it in, and the police showed up, and they arrested him. Whole thing. They took the dogs. I think they euthanized all the dogs. Right. Super crazy situation. And this just happened. I think it happened a couple months ago.
I just Googled it. Billy Joe Saunders.
Saunders, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen that one. That's not on my algorithm. So.
You're more wholesome than me, it sounds like. And so they tried to but I'm looking at the headlines, like you can YouTube it and there's all these videos, and they try to make it out to be like this evil thing. And I'm like, this guy was just going out with his buddies with beautiful dogs to course some hares. Like there's literally nothing wrong with this. But it turned into like a huge situation, and you could see his frustration in the video where he was like indignant. He's like, just arrest me. I don't care. Arrest me then. And you could see the cops were all nervous because I think they knew who he was, and they like didn't want, you know what I mean?
Didn't want to play.
Yeah. And, so there are guys that still, even though they make the laws, there's still guys that will get out, and gals that will get out and do that type of activity is what you're saying, basically?
Yeah. And again, it at the moment, for running hares, it does seem to be, still fairly heavily pursued. As I say, with lurchers, with hares. But again, it's getting increasingly policed. The problem is now where it's being done illegally. I mean, it used to be done with landowners' permission, etc. Now the majority of it is poaching. And, unfortunately, that's now causing major issues, from the farming communities as well, because a lot of these guys are then just tearing across the fields in four-wheel drives, showing no respect to what they're doing, damaging crops, damaging, gates, damaging farm buildings and whatever else. So, unfortunately, you've got it's now bringing with it the sort of criminality side of it, rather than just the sporting side of it. So it's getting wrapped up with that as well.
Yeah, we had Franklin Falconry. He's in your neck of the woods. Joe Franklin, friend of the show, great guy. He was telling us that he has tried to get permission on properties, and he's been turned away because of the illegal lurcher guys, sighthound. And they're destroying the property, and the landowner is just fed up with it. And he's like, nobody comes on my property, and won't even give him permission to go there with a Harris Hawk because of that.
And this is one of the big problems that we're seeing now, because the landowners are getting so fed up with it. If they're seeing any number of hares building up, then they're just going out and shooting them. Just to take the hares off the ground,
because they know that somebody's going to start to notice and then sneak in there and kind of just. It's just so sad. The whole thing is just so it aggravates me to listen. My friend he's a state trooper, in New Jersey, and he listens to the show on a regular basis. He's probably listening right now. And he always tells me, Casey, you incriminate yourself constantly on the show. You have to stop. He's right. But I always said, if they made falconry illegal tomorrow, literally tomorrow, my life would not change at all. It would not change at all. You know what I mean? I do not care. You know what I mean?
Your social media use might change.
My social media would cut in half, but you know what I mean? It's just there's certain things where it's like as a human being, it's your heritage to do these things. And I think that you should do them to a respectable degree. So basically poaching is a problem all over. And I'm sure the sighthound coursing hares would be considered poaching. But that doesn't mean that you have to be a scumbag about it. Don't destroy the guy's property. Exactly. Don't break his fences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's guys, where I used to live in the suburbs, there's monster whitetail deer. They're huge monsters, like trophy caliber deer. And these guys would shoot them and just cut the head off and leave the body where people can find it. And I'm like,
wow.
You know what I mean? I'll go there to fly my bird, and I would see a deer with his head cut off and the body's all bloated. And I'm like, all right, well, if you're going to poach, at least poach respectably. Excellent. You know what I mean? If you're going to course hare,
use it.
If you're going to course hare, at least try to be respectable about it. You know what I mean? Don't destroy the landowner's property and his crops. Course your hare, get in, get out. You know what I mean? Exactly. I don't know. It's just crazy.
No, that was it. But unfortunately, it certainly doesn't seem to be that way anymore. When we used to have the Waterloo Cup, which was a famous coursing event, and that was a very gentlemanly affair. And unfortunately, it's certainly not pursued that way currently.
I would lament the loss of lurchers personally, and if you can't course, I would imagine that's something that's probably going to go away.
Yeah. Well, again, you've got rabbits, but that's more suited for your smaller lurchers, your whippets, and whatever else. So, it's it certainly doesn't give you the same sort of run as a hare does.
Now, I'm sorry, Aaron, to interrupt you, but coursing. So, if the rabbit, when it's bolted from a warren by a ferret, when does it become coursing?
Well, you're allowed
to hunt rabbits with lurchers. So you're still allowed to hunt rabbits. It's just hares that you're not.
And why is that? Public perception, or the numbers, or the distance?
I think it's just from a pest control perspective. With rabbits, and again, I think more sort of tugging on the heartstrings that hares have got a better public appeal.
Yeah, we got to we as in all falconers, hunters, outdoorsmen, houndsmen, we have to start being, I think personally, we have to start going on the offensive and stop waiting for stuff to happen.
Being on the defensive.
we got to start going out and trying to push to get, fox hunting back in Europe. Like, we got to push, like harass. Like, we want to get this back. We've been, how many?
There's people out there, there are groups out there, there are, people that are trying to do things like that at the moment. But it just seems like you're trying to push back against the tsunami at the moment, because it's just a constant bash. And this is, social media, algorithms, as you're saying, all of these people just end up in an echo chamber watching what they want to, watching what they think is right. And then that's all they see. They don't see anything else. And this is the problem. Then they become incredibly ensconced. And I think, we've got, certain big celebrities here that are causing, especially wildlife celebrities that are causing a lot of issues with all of our sort of sporting lives at the moment. But that's affecting us from the north of Scotland all the way down to the south of England, in the way that they're very cleverly trying to create legislative changes, which, although it's not trying to outright ban what we're doing, it's coming in and sidestepping and making what we do impossible through other avenues.
Do you have any allies and celebrities there?
Not massively. I mean, obviously, Vinnie Jones. He's a huge advocate for hunting
really?
season and whatever. Yeah.
That's cool. Old Bullet Tooth Tony.
Sorry, a Bullet Tooth Tony. Yeah, so
what was that Snatch that he was Bullet Tooth Tony?
What's that? Sorry,
the movie Snatch.
With
Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt played a gypsy boxer, and there was actually a coursing scene in that movie.
Exactly there. So, yeah.
So
not a bad little run from what I remember, but there's a few, but I just don't think people want to put their head above the parapet. Everybody's sort of trying to, trying not to get caught up with it, because obviously it could be financially harmful for them. Whether they get picked for the next movie or whatever else, because an awful lot of the sort of celebrity arena seems to be on the more on the anti side than it does on the the positive.
Yeah, I think if it was me and I lived where you live and I had, your YouTube channel is huge. It's amazing. The content is incredible. I mean, if I was part of your team, I would say we got to get Billy Joe Saunders, the boxer. We have to get him, and he has to. I'm telling you, if you made a video,
might be a nobody, Casey.
No, he's he's a big name boxer. He's a big deal.
So big that none of us knew who he was.
Well, we're not. I'm not a boxing fan. You know what I mean? If you got him to explain why he went out and why he did that, he already got caught. He's already going to court over it. It's already a big deal. If you got him to explain, this is why I do it. This is the reasons why we've been doing it for hundreds of years. It has no negative impact on the ecosystem. And you got some of that propaganda out in the other direction. I think that it could go a long way, because people just see it and they just say, oh, this guy's going out and killing stuff for fun. But instead they would see, this is why we do it. It's the dogs enrichment. It has no negative impact. The hare populations in certain areas gets out of control and hurts the farmers, because the farmers are going out and shooting them themselves when they get too much. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's like many, like I said earlier, it's a mathematical equation. Like, if you just explain that to the everyday person, it could, you're not going to win everybody over, but and our big thing, especially where I live, is the bear issue, the black bear issue.
Right.
People love the bears and they're obsessed with bears. And they don't realize that bears are a game animal, that they require so much food each and every day to live. And if there's too many in one area, that's when they start attacking old people, knocking garbage cans over. So then the numbers need to be managed. And if you just get a chance to explain to one person, like, the equation in New Jersey, for example, New Jersey in the United States, we have this many acres that bears can live on. One single bear needs this many acres of food to live. So therefore, there's an excess of bears to this number. They have to be removed for the betterment of all the rest of the bears. It's like very simple. And if you could just explain it to somebody, it makes perfect sense. Whether they want to receive it or not, that's up to them. But the math doesn't lie. So I don't know. I'm sick of our rights being eroded away.
100%. But it's how it's how on earth that we managed to do it. And again, you're obviously doing your bit with with your podcasts and with your sort of Instagram profiles and everything else, and putting that side of it out there and showing it off, in its glory. And I think that's what we all need to start doing, is celebrating as sportsmen what we do, and making people realize that we are there. It's not, we're not defunct. We're not dying out. We are there. And just really sort of, I think the biggest thing that I'm fearful from is not just the fact that, they're trying to legislate against us, but it's more the fact that we're not seeing the next generation so much over here in this country coming online. You're not seeing as many children in the hunting field. You're not seeing as many people, as many youngsters taking up falconry. And that I think is our fault. It's our generation's fault for not making it appealing. Not getting and not being welcoming enough to try and get these get more youngsters involved in all of our sports. And I think that's something that we do desperately need to address. I don't know what what uptake you've got in falconry and shooting sports over there. I think your bow hunting is very big still, isn't it? And your rifle shooting is still very big. But what about, are you seeing that with falconry over there?
We have I think falconry is growing here. It's bigger than it's ever been. I think Casey would agree with that, I'm sure. But we seem to really just have a culture of hunting white-tailed deer here in America, with the occasional turkey. That's
a good measure.
Big. Yeah, people love that stuff. But as far as like trapping, upland bird hunting, falconry, things like that, it's not mainstream. It's not common.
Yeah.
The stuff that basically the stuff that requires an extra level of commitment is kind of going to the wayside, and the stuff that is more common and easier to engage in is kind of taking the forefront, which is still good, right? It's still good because we got people out in the field. You know what I mean? I think the white-tailed deer like hunting industry in the United States is like, I think I heard a statistic. It was like $3 billion a year worth of gear and equipment sold for that activity.
I bet that's on the low end.
I would imagine you're right. So it's a huge pastime that Americans love. But trappers, back in the 70s, in the 60s, I mean, they're getting top dollar for pelts. People are wearing fur. The whole culture was different. They were out there. There was kids checking traps on the way to school and checking traps on the way home from school, and they were making more than their dad with the pelts they were bringing in. And now, the whole throwing blood on people wearing fur, and like the whole protest about that made the price of fur go down. So like, I feel like those old timer individuals that were hardcore trappers, they were less incentivized to push their children into it because they're like, it's dying. There's no point. I used to get this much money. Now I don't get that much money. You know what I mean? And it kind of just slowly kind of gets eroded. But I mean, here in America, and I don't know about in Europe, but the trapping is like, realistically, the trapping is like the most important, outdoor activity, hunting and activity you can do, because it really has the most impact. You're removing all these predators that are out of control in most areas, and you're making room for other things, like these guys that hunt turkeys and and waterfowl. If I post any video of anything waterfowl related, I get more views than anything else, because there's so many waterfowl guys that they just love to hunt waterfowl. But like, trapping really helps with the numbers, because you're removing the meso predators that are eating the eggs, eating the babies. You know what I mean? It's like, but they overlook it because it's not like it's not in their, in their forefront. It's not there anymore. It's kind of died off.
It's interesting that you touched on that. And I mean, that's one of my big bugbears in this country at the moment, is that we've got huge conservation organizations that are coming to the fore, and they're buying up large tracts of our wilderness areas. So some of the moorland in Scotland, some of the moorland in Wales, and they take over these areas which have been kept, carefully kept for grouse shooting or for game shooting or whatever else. They take on these areas in the name of conservation. And my idea of conservation is you allow the species to prosper and bring up the numbers. And all of a sudden, you see these areas, they don't follow the practices of predator control, of predator management, of heather burning, and keeping the moors as they should do, because they've got a utopian alignment in their minds that everything in nature can live side by side, and Bambi's going to go running off with Thumper, and they're going to live happily ever after. So they're not following the practices that have been historically followed on these places. And you'll go to a properly kept grouse moor, and it will be absolutely bustling with life. There will be from the smallest snow buntings up through to grouse, ptarmigan on the tops, black grouse on there as well, all the wading birds that are nesting on there, and everything just thriving. And then you go on to one of the conservation group's moors, and it is just long, deep, rank heather, and it's just desolate. It's just like a heather desert. Nothing on there. I think that's a big problem that we're facing at the moment. We've got some moors over in Wales, and they were always a fantastic breeding ground for merlins. But in Wales, they've stopped them shooting crows, and most of these moors have been sold off into private ownership, or for rewilding schemes or tree planting schemes or whatever else. And I know the guys that do the surveys there, so the raptor surveys, and where the crow numbers and the raven numbers have just become so high, all of the merlin pairs have just disappeared off the moors. And we're seeing that exactly the same in some of these Scottish moors now. So it is this. I think that's another big issue that we're facing over here. And it is just this. These conservation bodies, they've got huge marketing capability, and they draw in millions of pounds in donations, and and then they squander it and actually destroy the habitats that they're meant to be conserving.
It's very attractive to well-intentioned people to hear conservation and say, "Yep, yeah." So conservation group buying land sounds good to me, but it's very similar to here. And I was guilty of it at one point before I was more educated on the subject. Was I thought just leave the woods alone, old growth trees, good to go, right? Those places are deserts. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
So you have to log. You have to. You have to allow new growth to come up that supports all types of life. I want to ask you while we're on the subject, and I'm just going to assume the answer is no. Is trapping legal there?
Snaring is still legal, and we can still trap foxes. And we can trap mink, but
only with snares.
Sorry,
only with snares.
So no, we can still run snares in England. Again, it's becoming. I'm not 100% up on my snaring laws at the moment. We can still use snares in certain circumstances. But again, you've just got to be very, very careful to make sure you don't get any bycatch in them. We can still run traps for, as I say, for mink and for stoats and weasels. But again, the type of traps, and we got caught up in one of the American legislations over fur trapping for ermine. I think they had to change the type of traps because we usually use fen traps, but apparently that wasn't a quick enough kill. So we had to, because it's one of the fur trapping laws, we had to turn over and change all the traps that we use to a more efficient method. But we can still use traps like that. But it's not, they're not used for just for fur-bearing animals, it is just as a predator control usage.
Trapping in the United States depends on the state itself. For instance, where Casey used to live, I think Casey used to live in New Jersey. Now he lives in New York. The laws are very strict because people get really emotional about traps, probably the same way they are about dogs pursuing game.
Yeah.
But where I live in North Carolina is the southeast of the United States. Trapping here is very liberal, but there's not many people that do it. It's one of those dying arts. And I actually started trapping recently. My dad was one of those kids that back in the 50s and 60s would trap and make some good money trapping to support his grandma.
But what have you got? What species have you got there for trapping, or that you can trap over there?
That's an exhaustive list. What I'm really focused on are beaver.
Yeah.
But you could beaver, coyote, fox, raccoon, mink, otter, bobcat.
Okay.
Lots of things. Yeah.
Aaron wants to get himself a new eagle this year.
Sorry?
Aaron wants to get himself a new eagle this year. That's why. He's trying to stack those furs so he can go over to the Indian reservation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's I went to the beach and I collected some abalone seashells.
No, they don't like the shells. They like the beads, Aaron.
Oh, okay.
You got to get the turquoise beads. Yeah. Stupid joke that I tried to bring back. But no, trapping, it's crazy because in New Jersey, you can't use a foothold trap. You can only use a snare because of the social stigma around the pictures of, canine predators in footholds, and they look sad and they look, and this whole propaganda, same thing like you guys deal with. So now you can only use a snare, but the snare is indiscriminate. It just, anything that walks through it gets its neck, goes around its neck. So like the foothold traps, like an animal, you're targeting a specific animal with a specific set, and you're assuming it's going to move in a certain way to get caught in that trap. A snare is just on a game trail at a certain height, and a deer, a dog, anything can go through it and get caught. And then if it struggles too hard, it's going to get strangled and to death. But with a foothold, it holds it in place. You can release it unharmed. It's like bizarre how like these anti-trapping hunting people, like they're so dumb that like I would rather a wire noose be put into the ecosystem than a foothold that just holds an animal in place for you to identify it and then either release it or dispatch it. It's so pathetic to me. It drives me nuts. But Aaron, I think we're going to switch gears, right? Let's move on from the enraging conversation that's just raising my blood pressure.
Roy, thank you for indulging us on the legislation. It's a big thing of what we do here. And we, in America, falconers, like Casey alluded to earlier, kind of sometimes can view themselves separate from other sportsmen. And we're really advocating for sportsmen to be a cohesive unit that's pushing 100%. For each other's rights. You guys don't really seem to have that issue. It really seems like sportsmen are sportsmen in the UK, whether it's falconry or ferreting or whatever, right?
Yeah, there can be a slight division, but generally everybody gets on and everybody supports each other.
That's great. I wanted to ask you because ratting. I've seen videos of you doing ratting with an air rifle, shooting rats with an air rifle. Mm-hmm. Have you ever got into ratting with dogs?
I have got into ratting with dogs. The trouble is I am a complete and utter tart and I scream like a girl. So it is the one animal on God's good earth that scares the shit out of me. So I cannot stand them. I've got many tales of going out with packs of dogs on rats, and I just end up a quivering, screaming mess, I'm afraid.
Do you think that's a holdover in your genetics from like the bubonic plague and stuff like that? Like,
no, it is genetic. It is genetic, but it comes from my father terrorizing me as a small child with rats. So
that's
I used to sit and watch telly as a kid, and we used to have chickens and whatever else, and we used to have the feed bins, and he used to if he went out and into one of the into the barn and found a load of there was a rat in the feed bin, he'd catch the thing, come in, turn the light off, and then throw it at me. So that is where that fear comes from. So yeah,
That's
hilarious.
A deep set childhood phobia.
Hey, listen, as a father with a 5-year-old, I would imagine he just wanted you to go outside and help him, and you didn't want to get out from in front of the TV.
Exactly. It's just
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, so no, I have a very healthy fear of rats, but it's nothing to do with the bubonic plague.
It seems like it's a more popular pastime over there than it is here, ratting.
Okay. No, I mean, ratting with dogs is amazing fun. Yeah, it really is. It's absolutely phenomenal. You get a little pack of terriers, and away you go. And some of the guys are getting huge numbers, especially on either pig farms or chicken farms. It's brilliant sport.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a good Sunday morning activity before lunch.
Before lunch, don't wash your hands either. So we started on the subject, we got off track, which is totally fine, but we wanted to talk falconry with you. So
okay,
you had your first owl, you got a buzzard. What was your first proper falconry bird?
From there, then I got and this is when Harris Hawks hadn't been in the country that long. We'd started breeding them over here. But my first proper falconry bird that I had good success with was a Harris Hawk, and that sort of combined with the time we used to have some courses, falconry courses over here that were run by Steve and Emma Ford. I don't know if you know those guys over in the States, but as I say, back when I was a boy, they did week-long residential falconry courses, and you could do different stages, different levels, for short wings or for long wings and what have you. And I attended a few of those. I think the first one when I was 12. And that's really where I started to learn the proper foundation. I mean, obviously I read books and whatever else, but that was where the sort of penny started to drop on, how was best to go around training a bird and getting success in the field, learning how to make all the equipment and whatever. So that was my first proper grounding.
Okay. Like all these other things, you guys definitely seem to have more of a culture of falconry there than we do. But you definitely have bird keepers, right?
Oh,
People
yeah.
that have pet birds. So what the distinction of a falconer versus a bird keeper is? I'm assuming that a falconer to you guys is somebody who actively goes out and hunts their hawk.
And hunts wild quarry. Yeah.
Right.
And again, over here, we're not allowed to use bag game either. So, everything has to be wild. We're not allowed to use baggies. So that's not an option over here for training.
Question for you is, I hesitate to even ask the question, but I have to ask it anyway. Is a vast majority of people still, you know what I mean? Still using them per se?
I don't think so now. I don't think with the way that we've evolved and with the way I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but for the people that are still allowed to and still do use. I think we do a lot of lure training work. We do a lot of with the hawks. We've got a lot of different tools in the toolbox that we can use. So, generally it's not something that we have to rely on. It's trying to skin the cat in a different way, but ending up in the same place. So
yeah, I agree.
We just have to be a little bit more inventful with the way that we do things. and we can't quite take some of the shortcuts that would be available to us if we did it that way.
Shortcuts. I take that as a personal attack against American falconry.
Don't get me wrong. If I could use the shortcuts, I would use the shortcuts. So it's much quicker. But yeah, I do. As I said before, I do a lot of commercial breeding falcons for the UAE market. So I go over there, and obviously they're allowed to use bag game over there. And it is amazing the results that they can get very, very quickly. Using the game in that way. But as I say, it's something that's not been legally available to us for a long time. So we have to be come up with different ways of doing things.
Yeah, I listen. I'm just going to make this argument, and it may irritate a lot of people, but I think a real crow flies better than a row crow.
I don't disagree with you. I do not disagree with you. But row crow training is for pursuit hawking is phenomenal. Okay, so it is absolutely amazing. What you can do with a young falcon. I've flown falcons ever since I was a kid, and done the lure flying. I've done drone flying. I've done kite flying. All sorts of different ways to try and get the falcons fit. I have once I started. I think I started using row crows about 8 years ago. Once I started using those, I could not believe how fit I could get an IS falcon in such a short period of time. I mean, it's just breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. I mean, and the fitness that we can get them to outweighs anything that I've ever seen before.
You wouldn't happen to know? Go ahead, Aaron.
I just got to ask this before we get off subject. What is a row crow for those of us out there who don't know?
Okay, a row crow is a radio controlled lure, basically. So it's a little model aeroplane in the shape of a large crow. So it's more sort of raven size or bigger, when you're looking at it. So it's got an EDF in it, which is an electric ducted fan, and these things can fly at phenomenal speeds, and they're pretty unstable in the air as well. So you can stoop with them, you can twist with them, you can turn with them.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, they're phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And we've got Valley over here, so we've got our own falcon races over here where we train a lot of falcons and go and make a weekend of it and compete against each other. But you will never see if you ever get a chance to go to Valley or come to Valley, then please do. It'd be lovely to see you. But come over and have a look. But you will never see so many falcons in the same place being flown to such a high degree, in front of you in a pursuit style flight. It is just phenomenal. We're flying a lot of Jers, Jer Peregrines, Jerkins, lots of different other hybrids as well. But to see what you can do with one of those things is just phenomenal.
That's interesting. No, I don't doubt it. And shout out to Dr. Nick Fox. He's the owner of that company, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So Nick came up with the idea of it, and in cohorts with a few other people, came up with the design, and it works. And I've not just flown falcons to it, but I've flown Goshawks to it as well. You've got to be a little bit more careful with the Goshawk, not to overface them. But you can get gosses going on it as well. So it is. You can use it for all sorts of different things, and you can make up different scenarios with it as well. But they are incredibly good.
I'm looking at the website now. They actually sell a row goshawk. Maybe I could keep that one alive, Casey.
You and me both, bro. You and me both.
I won't ask what happened to your last goshawk.
Oh, she was eaten by a red-tailed hawk. A wild red-tailed hawk.
Oh, no. Crikey.
We have found that goshawks, I don't know, and I know you have a lot of experience with goshawks, so we would love to talk more about that with you. But Casey and I have found that goshawks have unique ways of killing themselves.
Yeah.
It seemed like they have a propensity for death.
Me and Aaron, we discovered that fact together as part of the show.
Yeah.
We learned that together. It's a brand new phenomenon that goshawks like to kill themselves. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how they survived evolution, but yeah.
What are your experiences with goshawks killing themselves? Or is that new to you? Is that news to you that goshawks do that?
No, I mean goshawks are not the brightest of birds. They're not the sharpest tool in the box, but once they're locked onto something, they are very, very single-minded, very focused. So yeah, if there's fences get in the way or something else gets in the way, windows or whatever else, then they can be a little bit problematic. But yeah, I do love them. I mean, they are they've been a mainstay of my falconry career growing up. And I've still got a few, still kept a lot of my old breeding stock and what have you. So if I, whenever I want to fly a new IS, I can produce one for myself. But I would not have a muse without a goshawk in it. That's for certain.
Amen.
So I saw a video where you had. I'm sorry, Casey. You had a video where you had a very old goshawk.
Yeah.
And how old was that bird? Is that bird still with us?
No, how old was she? I think she was 16 or 17. And then she unfortunately got killed by a fox. So yeah, it's
in the field.
No, at home on the weathering lawn. So a fox managed to get in there and take her. But yeah, it's it seemed like the foxes they're getting their own back for all the years I've spent pursuing those as well. But yeah, it's it's unfortunate.
I have a very random, very country specific question for you. When you say the weathering lawn, because I hear the back garden, and I hear what is a garden? What is a garden?
What is a garden, darling? A garden.
Yeah, what is that? Because I got a backyard, where like I put my
that's pretty much what your garden is. Yeah, no, it's a lot of houses have got a small garden, so it could be planted up with flowers or just a nice little lawn or whatever else. But it's just your backyard, if you like.
So if there's grass, it's still considered a garden? Yeah. So it can be grass, flowers, whatever else. It's still your garden. But if it's when I'm talking about a weathering lawn, it will be specifically a nice area that's set up for housing the hawks and the falcons. But if you put grass and flowers, is it not a garden then?
Yeah. It's still a garden. It's still your backyard.
I'm just trying to figure out, because in America, if I say the garden, you think I got vegetables, I got roses growing in there. But in Europe, it seems like the garden is kind of like your backyard. There could be flowers there. Because I just acquired a Sprocker Spaniel, which you may be familiar with because it's like kind of a European thing. And I'm new to Spaniel, so I've been watching a ton of videos, and all the best training videos are all in your neck of the woods. So they're saying, don't let the dog in the garden and get in trouble in the garden, the back garden, And I'm like, what are they talking about with the garden? But I guess it's just like your backyard, and if there's stuff that it could get into, you got to watch out for that and keep your eye on it.
Stop it being a little shit and get into what it shouldn't be into. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, especially spaniels, because they will just create mayhem.
Yeah, she's quite the handful, but she's turning it. My wife. Dachshunds, I run only dachshunds my whole life. This is the first non-dachshund I've ever gotten for hunting purposes. And I don't know if because she's cute, but my wife is obsessed with the dog. She says it listens better, it's more attentive. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know.
And you put your Daxies to ground, yeah?
Allegedly, yes.
Allegedly, you're not allowed to put them to ground. Then.
I heard somewhere that so talk about gray areas and rules. I was told that you can't harass a small game in its Aaron, what is it? What did Teddy say? It's like its dwelling, its safety area. What?
Maybe
it's domicile.
Refuge, so you can't use ferrets.
We cannot use ferrets, but we can use dachshunds, and even that might be a gray area. But my argument is that my dog is not harassing a cottontail in its den or its burrow, because they don't make dens or burrows. They're using another animal's burrow, so it's not illegal. That's my argument. I think if I was going to get in trouble, I would have gotten in trouble already. I got, a bunch of videos, whatever. But yeah, so this is the first non-dachshund that I'm running, and they do go to ground. And I have one. I ran them today. That's why I was a little late, because I was in the field, first hunt of the year, and it was a little bit of a shit show. But but I got the bird back, and dogs are all safe, so I'm happy.
That's what matters.
Okay. And how do you find those as dogs? Are they quite obedient? Or?
Yeah, I mean it's dog specific. I mean, Aaron has like 11 of them, so he would know more than me. But I think it's just the same thing with like any falconry bird. The amount of time you put into it, you're going to get that in return in terms of obedience, efficiency in the field. I think the e-collar, I grew up with no, having no money, having just no telemetry for my birds, my Redtails, no e-collar for my dogs. And it was a completely different world. As soon as I discovered, e-collars, I mean, that is just like, I think I shock my dogs maybe once a year, if that. Right. Once they know that thing will shock them, when you call them, they come. And dachshunds have a tendency to be very stubborn. But once they know that, you're not playing around, and when I call you, it means come now, they come. So my experiences from when I was a kid to now is different, and they can be very obedient. I mean, they're not like a spaniel. The spaniel will come look right at me, right in my face. I tell her sit. She sits and looks at me. Dachshunds are just making laps across the yard, looking for stuff. Like they want to go. You know what I mean? They want to get out and trail. It's a completely 100%. Different thing. It really is. So
I've got a couple of wire-haired tackles, wire-haired dachshunds, and they are. I use those mainly for stalking, for tracking. I mean, we've got a whole host of different other breeds as well for different jobs. But they are particularly belligerent compared to certain other breeds from what I've seen. So,
yeah, they are stubborn dogs. Just the hound piece, because they are a hound.
Yeah,
typically hounds are, in my experience, and many others, stubborn dogs.
No, I've seen them do fantastic things out in Sweden and out in Austria and places like that. But they're funky little things. So
I wanted to ask you, Roy, about going back to Goshawks.
Yeah,
you've big part of your falconry, as you said. What is your preference for goshawk, as far as makeup? For instance, European goshawk crossed with Siberian goshawk.
Yeah, I mean, my preference now is I like to have a little bit of Albardas blood in them. So just for the wing loading, because if you look at the wing shape on the Albardas compared to what we would call the Finnish type, or the Butioides or whatever else, whichever guys you want to come under it, but that the sort of very very northern end of the goshawk's range. I prefer, or what I've tended to breed for myself is something that's got a touch of Albardas in it, just to get a little bit more speed out of them. So they've got a slightly longer wing, not quite as rounded. It's a different shape. And I find with those, then they are just absolute monsters. I mean, they're just incredibly fast. And lovely nature as well. So I tend to find the smaller subspecies of goshawks tend to be a little bit more twitchy. They can be. Yeah, I've flown wild caught European goshawks and stuff, but my preference is definitely for some of the big girls.
Twitch,
and that
twitchy is a. Sorry, twitchy is a great way to describe.
That's perfect. Well, we have our North American goshawks here.
Yeah,
and they are so different from the European birds or the Asian birds.
Very twitchy.
They're very twitchy birds.
Yeah.
Is there any presence of North American birds in the breeding stock in Europe?
We don't have access to them. I've never seen, over here, I've never seen a North American goshawk.
I really wonder if you guys would bother with them if you had them.
It would blow your mind, Aaron. It would blow their minds. They don't have any idea. They are twitchy, but they are twitchy in every way. They are explosive birds.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
The trade-off.
So, and what's your preference with what you've been flying then?
Well, I'm a Goshawk novice. Okay, so I don't have much experience, so I'll just speak briefly in case he can go because he's had much more than me. But I think there certainly is something to the European bird's temperament. And I think that you are correct about I would agree with you about the Siberians as well, is that from what I've seen, the European Siberian crosses are big, gamey, bold birds.
Yeah.
And the most success I ever had was with a female Finnish goshawk. And the guy that bred her, his name is Lance Christensen. He is very, very, very serious about genetics. So if he sells you a bird that he says is Finnish, that bird is Finnish. That bird's parents came from Finland, or it's the descendants of Finnish birds. So the most success I've ever had was with a female Finnish goshawk that was raised by its parents in a secluded mews, aviary, whatever you want to call it, and then pulled out. And the first time it saw a human being was when he walked in to pull the bird out for me.
Right.
So he was the first human it saw. I was the second human. And that was probably my favorite bird of all time that I've ever flown, period.
Okay.
But the bird that was killed this year by a redtail was a
Russian Butyoides. It's like a
Ural mountain.
Yeah, it's a Ural mountain Butyoides, and it's like it's hard to describe because it's technically like a 50-50, but it's not a 50-50. It's like a Russian. It's a Russian Butyoides albitus. So they're from like the same region, but two different things, and they're real big, real calm, aggressive. They're great birds.
Yeah.
So she was shaping up to be an incredible bird. I was so excited about her. And I don't know if you guys do this, but with imprint birds here, smart falconers at least, well, that's debatable, I guess, based on my experience, but smart falconers will hack a bird.
Right.
Do you guys ever hack?
No, I mean, over here, again, we've just got to be very careful with power lines and things like that. And goshawks will always, try and fry themselves on a junction box or whatever else. So I tend not to, to do that. All I do, I'd love, I've come at it from a few different ways. But the technique that I've developed for myself now, which came from a breeding perspective, is I would always try and make the noisiest, screamiest, most horrible imprint I could have. Just because then when I put it in a breeding chamber later on, it just made my life a lot easier because, they'd come into condition. You could do what you like with them. But, it made it quite tricky in the initial circumstances when you're getting them going, getting them hunting. All I would do is just get them focused on killing straight away.
So you weren't worried about the vocalizations, anything like that? No,
I'm as deaf as a bloody post now anyway, so it's irrelevant to me. Too many years shooting rabbits out of the back of a pickup with a shotgun. So yeah, when you're a kid, you think you're bloody invincible, don't you? You're like, nah, it won't happen to me. And then now I find myself completely stone deaf. So their mouth is moving, but I'm not hearing anything. So it's exactly the same as having the wife moaning at me.
Oh boy, don't we know
I
it?
love it.
It's just like, don't hear it. Don't worry.
I was hacking that bird, and she was, in just a couple of weeks, the development was just incredible. Like how much she grew in that couple of weeks of like her mental development. And right as I was about to end the hack, as dove season was starting here, it starts in late summer, early fall. I told myself when dove season starts, I'm going to pull her before dove season starts. And then 2 days before dove season, I tracked her GPS location, and there was piles of feathers on the ground, and there was a screaming redtail in the distance. So she'd gotten into it with a red-tailed hawk and was killed and partially eaten. So
shit. Bloody hell.
horrible stuff.
How far was she going when she was at Hack? How far she was going from where you were?
She was at the stage where she wasn't going too terribly far. She was probably 500 yards from where I put her that morning.
Okay. Yeah.
So the problem, and one of the issues is all of these guys who are much more experienced than me with hacking goshawks, the only bird of prey that they have ever experienced being a problem for a goshawk on hack is great horned owls.
Yeah.
Never. I'm the first, as far as I know of, that has had a red-tailed hawk kill a goshawk on hack.
Okay.
It's a first. But it was a concern of mine because Casey can tell you, I asked him, I was like, bro, what about the redtails? They're everywhere. And he goes, the redtails are never a problem. He said, it's not an issue. And believe it or not, it stands to reason. They're not concerned with a bird about their size that time of the year.
Aaron,
yeah.
Everybody that I speak to about your situation, Aaron, they all say the same thing, that it wasn't the redtail. It was a juvenile eagle passing through that saw that big white bird sitting in a tree. Because a redtail, Roy, a redtail sitting on a kill. Well, I don't know how much experience you have, Roy, with a redtail, but a redtail is, a bigger buteo.
Yeah.
I can't see that bird. Your bird was almost completely eaten. Both chests were eaten, and the head was eaten off of this 1,300 gram, albitus cross goshawk. I can't see a redtail sitting there and eating 2 breasts and a head of one bird in one sitting. That's a lot of food. I can't see a redtail eating that. Honestly, I know there's no way of knowing, but I think an eagle killed that bird because there was so much flesh missing from the bird that I don't see how one redtail could eat all of that in summer. It's 80 degrees outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's a tricky one.
They're not. I certainly would not put the bird up where I was seeing eagles. So I've never seen an eagle there. I've never seen an eagle anywhere near there. But that's not to say one couldn't have passed through.
Couldn't have gone through. Yeah.
It's my luck that one would come through. It might have been a golden eagle, and we don't have golden eagles here. But my luck is a golden eagle came through and killed it. So
Bigfoot.
That is
Bigfoot ate
crying
it.
child.
There we go. We have a myth here, Roy, called the Thunderbird. That's what it was. It was a Comanche Thunderbird that comes there.
When things like that go wrong, it is just horrific.
So that's your preferred goshawk is European with a splash of Siberian.
Yeah, I mean, when you say, when we talk about European goshawks, we talk about the sort of mid-range, so the sort of Central European. European. When we sort of talk about European, it'll be German goshawk, Austria. Through that way. When we would talk about a European, and as I say, I have flown those and I have used those in breeding, but now my preference is as I say for more of the the larger finish with a bit of albitus in them. So not the central European, but the as I say the northern.
So you do see a distinction between Finnish and European.
Oh, massively! Yeah. I mean, the Finnish birds will be a lot bigger than the the ones we get from Germany. A lot of the hawks that we used to get from sort of Germany and Austria, they would be a very different shape, a very long tail, a lot smaller, and they would sort of mainly be predating crows and pigeons and things like that. Where obviously the larger goshawks were, the full, or the fins and the butioides, etc., that were coming over would be a lot larger, different wing shape, different wing loading, different tail. They were just a completely different beast. So the smaller Central European goshawks are, going back to that twitchy side, they're just a lot more sort of on edge all the time. So it's very, very sort of sparrowhawk-like in their mannerisms.
Interesting, very interesting. And if you think they're sparrowhawk-like, I wonder what you would think of North American goshawks.
Yeah, again, I've not seen them. not been out flying with them, but it'd be interesting to see what the differences are with them. What sort of weight range are they?
Go ahead, Casey.
I mean, I don't have a tremendous amount of experience flying them, but my sponsors have probably flown, through my apprenticeship, probably 25 North American Goshawks, roughly, between imprints and passages, and they would let them go and whatever. Females are normally around 880 is like the average weight of a North American female, 880 grams. Very, very explosive, twitchy, like you said, very twitchy. Yeah. But like from the fist, I mean, there's no female goshawk that'll compare from the fist to a North American female. Right. So that's just been my personal experience, and obviously in terms of ease of use, ease of handling, in everyday situations with people, stimulus in the field, anything with European in it is going to calm it down. From my personal experience, the 50-50 finish, quote unquote finish, because in America, we don't really know exactly if it's finish or not. Yeah. They just call it finish, except for like Lance and Seth Roy. They have birds that literally say Finland on the band on their leg. Yeah. So except for those guys, you don't really know if it's finished, but the 50-50 Finnish Siberian are like by far like females, and even the Tiercels are like the best bird to like just get your hands on, get out in the field, start killing stuff. Yeah. North Americans in terms of performance are going to blow all of those birds out of the water. What you think speed?
So you're saying that as in like long haul speed or just initial speed?
No, I'm talking about getting started on quarry, so entering on quarry. I'm talking about imprints, even chamber birds. The getting them on quarry is going to be way faster than the 50-50 European birds. Okay. The North American is going to get on quarry faster, 100%. They're going to get on quarry faster, but they're going to be a handful to work with. Like with their personality, you're going to have to be a little more delicate and kind of, I went from flying 4 or 5 European birds back to back, catching, 50 to 80 head of game a year. I got my first North American and caught 100 easy, and ended a month early because my wife we were giving birth to our That's very.
Yeah, she was, not you, buddy.
My wife was giving birth. My wife was giving birth to our second child, so I had to cut the season short a month and a half early, and we were already at 100 head. Right, hunting the same slips, same dogs, same everything. They get the job done a lot, and then they'll plow through brush, and then cut horizontal, and then just pop, 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 and fly the game down under the brush. It's insane. Right. Yeah. But they're, a little bit more temperamental. So at field meets with friends, like Aaron saw it, like my North American stayed in the truck, while there's a bunch of people there, and I flew the 3/4 Albitus, 1/4 finish, and we caught a whole bunch. And then when everybody left, me and Aaron took out the North American, and then we didn't catch anything at that particular that particular thing. But when she turns it on, I mean, it's snappy.
It was just the field was hunted out. The opportunities were limited. She's an incredible bird. That is when her head's in it, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. And what are you flying? What quarry are you flying with her?
I'm flying squirrels and rabbits mainly, and a couple some ducks here and there. Yeah, squirrels and rabbits. And squirrels are. I mean, this North American that I have out in the Mew, pure North American, she flies anywhere from 920 to 1,000 grams. Never been bitten. Nothing.
Okay. Do you do much crow hawking with them as well, or not?
I wish. That's like one of my goals in life. I got a couple goals in life: to catch a rough grouse, snowshoe hare that's white, and a crow. And I've never. So that's on my list. I've never caught a crow. So
no, because crow. I think crows with the goshawk are phenomenal fun. They are. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see your videos out there. You and your countrymen. I mean, those videos are like top notch, like incredible. Like,
how are you setting up the slips there for crows?
Great question, Aaron. Great question, because they're slick quarry crows. They're really clever.
They are they're very. So what you've got to do is find private roads, because it's illegal to slip out of a moving vehicle on a public road. So around farms or pig feeding stations or whatever else, and then get the crows. Obviously, you start off as close as you can, just to give the hawk the best opportunity. But once they figured out the game, then they'll take them out of the car at a fair old slip rate, or a longer distance. And you can be getting up to speed with it as well. So they can already be leaving the car hitting 40 miles an hour. And then the slips really do get fun. And you can get some phenomenal flights on them. Absolutely amazing flights with fantastic mid-air binds and what have you. But brilliant quarry.
I was curious about that because it would basically be impossible to just hawk crows on open ground, to walk up on crows with a hawk.
With a hawk, yeah. No, exactly.
I'm sure some accidents have happened where people have run into a random crow that their hawk managed to catch. But
it's not accidents, okay? Because I'm going to defend the listeners that are going crazy right now.
Go for it.
When you go to when you live in rural areas and you have equine, different animals feeding, crows will move in and they'll see an easy food source. You can maneuver yourself around fences, barns, and kind of
sneak up on them.
You can sneak up on them, but a crow out in the middle of a field. If you park your car, get out, pull the bird out of the box, and start walking towards it,
get it.
Dude, that thing is like 3 counties over already. It's over. It's not happening.
No, exactly.
But it can. If you live in a certain area, it can be done. But they're a tricky quarry for sure.
Yeah. No, they're super smart.
Are ravens a legal quarry in?
No, we can't touch ravens over here. So no, they becoming a lot more numerous, but no, not a legal quarry.
It's the same thing here. People who live in raven territory say that they can be a real issue for their falconry birds. Ravens get bold and pull feathers in the sky and mob their birds. So
they are. It's and again, just it's so incredibly intelligent. I've trained ravens, for film jobs and whatever else over time, before as well. And you're just dealing with something on a completely different level. The intelligence of those birds is just next level.
I have something very specific I want to ask you about, but I do want to know before we get into that, what would you consider like your mainstay of falconry, your go-to bird, your go-to quarry? What is it that you do around your house?
Around my house? It's difficult. That's a difficult one because it depends what time of the season. Because we for the last few years, I've got a few guys working for me. We're all falconers, so we've got a sort of bit of a brotherhood going on. So because we're all everybody here is employed from the breeding perspective on the falcon farm. We're all falconers together. So we all go out and have a giggle, have a laugh. So we'll start off the season maybe training falcons for the races on the road crow. So we'll start off with a team of 10 or 12 falcons, and then in the background, 1 or 2 of the guys might be getting some young sparrowhawks going for magpie hawking, and then we move on to into the winter with the goshawks and the golden eagles. So now it's a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, I used to spend my winters. For about 25 years, my winters would be spent up in Scotland, hunting with the goshawks and the golden eagles up in the hills up there. And that was where you would always find me. But we lost mountain hares as a quarry back in, I think it was 2001. And so we've been fighting to get that back. So we're having to make do with lowland brown hair hawking with the goldies, which isn't, it's nice, but it's nothing in comparison to what we could do up there.
That was exactly what I wanted to specifically ask about was the golden eagles.
Yeah.
Because that's my ultimate falconry goal as far as I think. I might try it and be like, this sucks. I'd rather go back to the goshawk. But I would love to get a golden eagle and live somewhere where I could fly the golden eagle on jackrabbits.
Yeah.
That's really the only realistic quarry that we have for them here. We have coyotes and we have foxes, but I'm sure there's people out there who would argue, but I don't know that I could ever put myself in a situation where I could catch those with any kind of regularity. But golden eagles, how long have you been flying those?
My oldest goldie now is Cappy, and he is, what is he now, 30 or 31? So I got him as a 20-week-old IS.
What is your relationship like with that bird?
It's pretty good. Old bloke and an old bird together. But we've been together for a long time.
Out of all the birds that you have more of a connection with him than you would anything else? Or is that just like
because he was a completely parent reared bird. So he was parent reared in an aviary until he was, as I say, I think it was about 22 weeks when I went to collect him. And we've grown up together. So I was in my late teens then when I got him. And as I say, we've grown up together, and it's been a long journey learning with each other. I've trained lots of other golden eagles since then, and I've got 2 other male goldies that I fly as well. Cappy, I have had to retire in the last couple of years because he's developed very bad arthritis in his toes from all the years being up in Scotland, bashing into the sides of mountains and snowbanks and hitting rocks and whatever else. So, he's age has taken its toll on him, bless him. But he went on he came on from a parent reared IS. And training him up and going through the normal falconry processes to, after spending so many years together, in the off season, then he started donating semen, and then so he'd have go through all the courtship displays with him in the spring and summer, and then take him out and go hunting with him in the winter. So
a parent reared bird will donate semen for you.
Yeah. I think there's certain birds that you can do that with. I know of a few people that have spent a lot of time, with their birds, and they have got parent reared birds, transferred over to, to donating or accepting inseminations. So it can certainly be done. Well, especially when you're talking something that's gone on, or when you've got a partnership that's gone on for that long, and with that longevity, you do develop a very, very close relationship with them.
And
not in the wrong way, but
very slowly.
Sorry.
Yeah, you've got quite the relationship with him. Eagles develop very slowly. We know that, so it's different. So a 22-week, is that what you said? 22-week.
Yeah.
That's very young as far as an eagle is concerned versus like a goshawk or a red-tailed hawk or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that would just about just hard penned, hard down, and ready to go. So then we started the training from then on in.
And I mean, as far as their mental development goes, an eagle that's a couple years old is still a relatively young eagle as compared to like a goshawk or a red-tail. That would be
but one thing I've learnt with goshawks, with golden eagles and everything else, you've got a very specific window of opportunity, and it's a lot shorter than I think people realize. And one of the things that I've with all the different eagles that we've trained over the years, and had experience with, is a lot of people will actually hold them back by thinking that they've got 2 years for them to develop a technique, or develop 2 or 3 years before they've reached the time that they should be provide, or they should be able to become a proficient hunting bird. And I think you need to reassess that and look at the bird, as it's developing as an individual, rather than just sort of, blanket coat them with that, because I will very quickly get a young ice or a young eagle going, and start it on the lure work and try and start its hunting as soon as it's fit, and I think it's fit enough and capable of doing so, and then take it out into the hunting field and giving it the best opportunities that I can. And especially with imprints, it's hard. It's a longer term project with a parent reared bird, because obviously you've got the rearing process before you can start the training. But when you can develop your training with that bird coming through and becoming hard penned, and you've already exposed it to the outside world, so you've done your manning, you've done everything else, you've taken it out in the vehicle, you've hood trained it, you've done everything else. So you've skipped so many weeks. You're ahead of the game. And then if you can make that transition into the hunting field with a fit, enthusiastic young eagle, it's amazing what they can do.
That's super fascinating stuff. It's just such a foreign concept to falconers in America.
Yeah, and also another thing on eagles in America, the golden eagles, so let's say somebody pulls a permit to trap a golden eagle. Just a quick story. I had dinner with Dave Canellis, and he said that himself and most guys, when they're out and they have the permit and they're trapping for an eagle, they're not trapping. They don't want a bird that's they don't want a first year eagle.
Right.
They want like a 3-year-old eagle.
Okay.
Before they'll be willing to pull it, because there's so many. We're gonna get Dave Canellis on the show, but he said basically that the first year eagles are just like scavengers, like they're just getting by, robbing tiercels in the field, eating roadkill. Second year they're learning that they can chase stuff and catch stuff. Third year they're like confident in chasing and catching stuff, and that's when you want to trap one and then implement it for falconry. But what you're saying is you could just skip all that by getting a younger bird and exposing it to more stimulus and
giving it the opportunities.
Giving it the opportunity.
Don't get me wrong, I've not had an awful lot of experience training passage goldies or wild taken goldies. I've only trained one, and that was a female, and she was probably about, I would have said she was probably 2 or 3, but I would from what I tried to get out of my eagle falconry and what I tried to achieve with my eagles, if I had the choice of flying a wild taken bird, there's no way I would choose a 2 or 3 year old one, from what I saw with her, because her flight style, the way that she wanted to hunt, the way that she was happy to hunt, her wing beat and everything else was already preset. That was ingrained. She knew what she was doing, and she was going to do it as she wanted to do it, rather than with a young eagle that you take on and you bring through. You're, for want of a better word, you're programming. You're indoctrinating the system, the flight style, the wing beat, the condition, everything from that very early concept. So you're developing that eagle down the path that you want to achieve. So I've got a certain set of parameters that I want to see out of a young eagle when it's training and when it's flying. To do with wing beat, to with how it leaves the fist. The trigger point from we slip out of the hood. So when we're walking the fields or walking the mountains or whatever else, everything, all the flights are taken on straight out the hood. And as the hood is coming off, that eagle wants to be leaving the fist. That eagle wants to be, and you'll see it because you train that trigger point in. As soon as that hood is coming off, that eagle is already in flight. And I've actually had it that with one of my young eagles, it went and the hood didn't come off properly, and it had hold of it in its beak, and you saw it chasing the hare down this mountain with the hood in its beak. Eventually caught the hare. I thought I'd lost the hood. It was a bloody lovely hood as well. When it was in thick heather, so you're just like, there's no chance of finding that. Luckily, when we trading them off the hair and picked the hair up, it was underneath the hair. But so it's a different story. But as I say, just back to the point, it is you get that trigger point, you get that exactly the way you want it. So that eagle is just powering off the fist as that hood is coming off. It's not hood off looking for the quarry. It's hood off and it's flying. It does not even seen the quarry. It is off and it's already in the air, and then it'll start flying and then track where the quarry is and start.
Question for you though, is that a necessity for an eagle, or is that a tradition or personal preference? You know what I mean? Like
that's my personal preference.
Okay.
So that's my personal preference. I want to see that bird exploding. The problem is if with flying hares with eagles, if the hare is not under pressure, and if that hare doesn't feel pressure, it'll go from running to skipping to pronking. And as soon as that hare with an eagle gets into that pronking gait, then the favours are forever in that hare's, or with that hare, because that hare is then just assessing, watching the speed, and it's just a very quick side jump, side movement, and the eagle's committed, flight over generally. Yeah.
Here in America, we had a great episode with Chad Reynolds, and he flies all different birds on jackrabbits, which is kind of like a hare, and he doesn't even want to fly them unless he has sight hounds on the ground with them to keep them moving, because they're too clever, they're too slick with the way that they can time things.
Yeah,
with the sight hounds, it adds a level of panic to the hare. Yeah, that it makes it want to just try to outperform the sight hounds, and then that gives the falcon or the goshawk, an entrance in to make the catch. Yeah, that's interesting. I always see that in videos, and like when you say lure, and you said lure throughout this interview probably 10 times. Are you referring to a Bull X machine?
No, my personal preference is I will tow behind a quad or tow behind a truck. Or a side by side, whatever else. Just because I've with that it's more labour intensive. I mean the Bull X's work, don't get me wrong, but it gives me a lot more control because in my general training regime, again I'll do it with the Goshawks and I'll do it with the Eagles. When I'm training them for hair work or getting them fit, then we'll do 3 on average. A general run is 3 lure runs a day, and then we're trying to get them up to speed. Around about 40 miles an hour, 40. Sometimes a little bit over 40 miles an hour. And that has got to be, and I do not want to see that bird setting its wings once in that flight. That bird has got to be pounding. For everything it's worth, from the moment it starts to the moment it hits the lure. And then those flights will be going on for possibly, generally we build up to about 300, 400 meters.
That requires help, though. Can't go out there by yourself.
Yeah, it requires a slipper and it requires a driver. So I'll be driving.
You don't want my wife. Yeah. You don't want my wife driving a 4-wheeler trying to pull a lure, because she's gonna crash into a tree or something. You know what I mean? Like that sounds like a lot of work. Like if I tried my wife, hey, get on the quad, pull this lure.
Just get her to slip the bird. Just get her to slip the bird. It's a lot easier.
She's going in. We're going to the hospital.
But as I say, I prefer that method because it just gives me control over the speed. I can get the exact speed that I want, because I can get the bird's beak just behind it, and then really, really get them pushing. And you can just see, you can get the gauge as you're watching back, and just see, to the point that you can push them to before you're going to overexhaust them or take them past the point. So every time I'm just pushing them to just at that breaking point where they've got nothing more to give, and then we'll just put in a little swerve or something else, and just they can come in and take it, but they're still going at full tilt. You're never trying to overface them.
Great. Yes. Question. In terms of practical application, and I've seen this with goshawks, and I think she started to turn on towards the end of the season, but this goshawk I have out there, I use a lure machine for her.
Yeah.
And the problem that I had is that she always caught it.
Yeah.
And that was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
When, let's say you have a new eagle just starting to get entered on stuff, and she's lazily, or he is lazily kind of just following along.
Yeah.
How are you controlling whether the bird catches or not? Because when they catch it, you got to give them something. So if the bird is flying like shit, for lack of a better term, not, it's setting its wings, it's flying lazily, but still somehow catches that lure, that's a problem, right? So what are you doing in terms of that kind of a situation? You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to ask you?
No, 100%. And this is the problem with lure machines. That is one of the biggest downfalls, because if you get a poor performance, generally they still get a reward, which is completely counterproductive to what you're trying to achieve. And so that is something that I always try and avoid, which again is why I'll try and use the truck. I wouldn't use a lure machine until I'll use a lure machine if I've got nobody else to help me or whatever else. But that would be at the point that I've already got that eagle flying in the style that I'm trying to achieve. So it's already fully committed. It's already giving me the wing beat and showing me the style that I want to achieve. Before I would do that. And even then, you've got to be very careful, because you get your distance or your timing slightly wrong, then you've got to slow the lure machine right down, because you're going to be running out of line. And then you're into the machine. So they do have their drawbacks, and I do see a lot of people making mistakes and giving their birds the wrong cues at the wrong time because of that.
I had an issue where I started to see this the North American, actually. I started to see that she would see the line. She knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
And she knew the lure was going to appear. And I said, you know what? Screw this bird. If you don't catch it within this distance, it's gone. And I would take the machine and I would bury it inside of the hedgerow.
Yeah.
And I would like trim out a little tunnel for the lure to slide in.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you don't catch it, it's done. It's gone.
Yeah. And that's got to be. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So I just think on a quad or a truck, that's going to be kind of hard to like. Unless you're on the phone with the guy driving it,
thinking
like go faster, go slower, go faster.
Well, no, because if you're driving it, you're looking directly at the bird.
Oh, so you're driving it and somebody else is slipping your bird.
Yeah. So I'm watching that. So I'm there, I'm driving, I'm looking back at the bird, and I'm just as I'm going, I'm just gauging how much I want to push them. And if they've not shown the commitment, if they're not giving it what they should have done, if they're not giving it the gas, then they're not catching it.
And you'll just drive away.
Then I'll just drive away. Yeah. I'll just
that's a great idea.
Not let them catch it. Because the last thing I want to do is reward poor performance. You're on a hiding to nothing, and especially with eagles, because they are incredibly smart. I mean, goshawks will figure it as well. It doesn't take many mistakes on your part, for them to figure. Okay, if I can hang back, I don't need to put the effort in. We can just run with this. And I think the coolest way I've ever seen it being done. I spent some time over with Josef Hebler in Austria, and he's incredibly good, and he taught me an awful lot when I went over there as well. Incredibly good eagle falconer. And they would do it on horseback, so they would pull their lures on horses, and that was exactly the same scenario, exactly the same training methodology. And if those eagles were not pursuing that lure, and they weren't giving it 100%, they weren't getting it, they won't get anywhere near it. The horses were just off, and that was it, done. But it is just, it is all about, as I say, that initial window of opportunity that you've got to instill the performance of and enhance, the bird's genetics and get out of it exactly what you're trying to get. And it's something that I always enjoy talking about as well is, reward on kills as well. So, that is it can be a very in-depth discussion, and we can take it as far as you want to take it. But with training the eagles and with training the goshawks, I run a bit of a variable reward system, in that when I'm lure training them, I never tie a piece of meat onto the lure, so there's never a piece of meat involved in it. What I'm looking for is that bird to go in, catch the lure, hit it. We'll have a mock battle after they've caught it. I want them fully committed, so I want both feet on it, and then their hocks down, and they're holding on, and they're fully committed to it. If that bird is on it and it's got 1 foot off of it, and it's posturing and it's not concentrating on the job, it's not right. So generally that can be a weight management issue, or you need to simulate a bit more of a fight with it. So you've got all of these cues. You're being fed all this information as you're training and as you're running through with them. But then what I'll do is I will go in and I will put a little bit of I'll put a food reward on it. So it may be a chick head, it may be a whole chick broken up in pieces. They'll get something. Sometimes they will get nothing, and then I'll trade off, and then we go again, and then we go again, and then that equates when you're out in the field that bird is not expecting. So you've not ingrained in that bird's thought process, if I catch this, I'm going to get a gorge feed, I'm going to get rewarded on that, and then that's my day done. Because if I'm hunting up in Scotland, then I want those eagles, goshawks, whatever else. I want to be able to go out, and if I want to catch 1 hare in the day, so be it. If I want to catch 10 hares in a day with a bird, then so be it. That the bird doesn't expect anything. The reward that bird is getting, and that the reward that it gets through the training, the reward that it gets through the hunting, is purely through the catching, not through the feeding.
So would you trade the bird off onto an empty lure, and that was okay for the bird?
No, I always trade up onto the fist.
Okay, how do you get them with a little bit of food on the fist?
Yeah. So we'll have a trade off, but again, a trade off piece for an eagle coming up back onto the fist, maybe a chick head or half a chick or something like that. Never big rewards, never big garnished, never big chunks of meat or anything like that on the fist. It's always just small pieces. A smaller reward. I've seen a lot of people going and trading off with like a rabbit leg or something like that and picking them up and everything else. And it's scrappy and it can create issues.
It can create issues. And I think a lot of guys, a lot of women, anybody that gets involved in flying, for us in America, it's an imprint goshawk thing, or even a chamber raised goshawk thing. Where it's like, okay, and like like we discussed earlier, America, we can kill baggies allegedly, and it's like, and Aaron, right? We were on the phone today, right? And I said, should I trade the bird off or let him just break in? And it's huge supporter of the show, friend of the show, Mike Clark. He just loves our show. He's like a huge fan of our show. Mike Clark. He has this philosophy, and it's really good philosophy, where he doesn't let any of his birds feed off of the quarry at all, ever. They catch and hold, and then their reward comes from the lure or the glove with a quick trade-off, and it's a standard size reward. Yeah. And that's it. And I think myself included, and I'm going through I don't know, Aaron's a psychologist. It's like some kind of emotional, identity issue right now. Cause I'm dealing with a goshawk that's
I think it's low testosterone.
Bro, I've been shooting up 1,000 milligrams a week and it's still not working. And so it's a late pulled, Roy, in America, it's a very fascinating thing. It's a late pulled IS North American goshawk, Tearsole. So he was pulled at 25 days old. Lot of fear, a lot of did not like being pulled from the nest, a lot of trauma. He's somewhere between an imprint and a chamber bird or a passage bird. So I'm kind of working through this issue with this Tearsole. And he killed a baggie, and I was on the phone with Aaron when he killed the baggie today. And he killed it. It was 3 times the weight of him, dragging him around the yard, allegedly. And I'm like, Aaron, you think I should trade him off to lure, or let him realize that thing is food? And I just decided to let him kill it and realize that it was food. But I may pay for that later, because he may not want to trade off later, because he may think, this is my rabbit. I get my food from this rabbit. I don't want to step off to your glove or your lure, and it can become a problem later. So,
one of the reasons I don't let our birds break in. I mean, they may kill the hare, but what I'm after is for that eagle. Even if if we're flying in Scotland, from where we start the flight to where it has caught the hare, because we may be working the dogs. We've got a team of dogs. We may be working that team of dogs 800 meters, 1,000 meters away down there, down on the bottom of the mountain. So that flight may go on for a kilometre and a half, or a couple of kilometres. So I don't, when I'm flying the eagles like that, I do not want them breaking in. So again, with doing the food reward system the way we do it, they're waiting for us to get there and looking forward to us coming in. So it's a positive, us coming in and putting that food reward on the lure, or sorry, on the lure or on the hare, and giving them that. Occasionally I'll break in and I'll take the pluck out. They'll take, they might have the heart, or they might have the lungs, whatever else, but again, it's not necessarily a given. But the reason I don't like them breaking in is because we've had a lot of issues with eagles breaking in on hares, eagles breaking in on other quarry as well, and that it's been previously shot at and is carrying a lead pellet, and we've had lead poisoning. So with any of my hawks, any of my eagles, anything, I try not to let them get into the habit of breaking in and feeding off the carcass.
Sorry, Aaron. That's something that we in America, I guess we should think about, but I guess it's not something that's on the top of our mind, right, Aaron? I guess.
Yeah. I've seen posts of people who will run a metal detector over quarry when they catch it before they feed it. And it's, for instance, people who've caught gray squirrels and they ran a metal detector wand over it and gotten a reed and dug into it and found a lead pellet. Yeah, from someone that shot it with a lead pellet rifle, and that would your bird's dead if it eats a lead pellet. It's dead.
Exactly, finished. Yeah. And we've had it out in the field when we've been at field meets. I've known of a couple of eagles that have been killed like that, where they've broken into hares, and they've had a bit of bird shot in them or whatever else, and swallowed it, and done.
Amazing. Now, as far as aggression goes with eagles, you've had eagles a long time, 30 years or more, maybe. Dealing with aggression out of eagles, have you ever gotten a nasty eagle injury, or, what do you do to curb eagle aggression? Because with the birds that were, goshawks, things like that, a little bit of aggression, not a huge deal. They're not going to seriously injure you like a 7-pound, 10-pound bird will.
Yeah, and again, I think you've got to be very, very aware of that if you want to get into eagle falconry. You are dealing with a very smart predator that is used to being king of his domain. And eagles will, it doesn't matter which eagle, how it's raised, whatever else, it's in their genetics to occasionally test you, push their luck, see where they stand, see if they can dominate you, see if they can push your buttons. And that is just something that comes, and you find it more with frustrated eagles that are not getting success in the field, or regular success in the field, that are not getting exercised correctly, that are not getting stimulated properly. That's when aggression issues really start to sort of come to the fore. So I would, in my younger days of eagle training, I would deal with it differently, and it could end up with a little bit of a battle with them coming at you, jumping off of lures at you and everything else. But again, that's generally a weight issue. If an eagle is coming off the lure at you, or if a goshawk is coming off the lure at you, generally that is down to weight management. because it's not concentrating. It's not concentrating on what it's got. All it's doing is going into protective mode rather than thinking about wanting to eat it, or thinking about what's going on. So, they get themselves in a state and get themselves worked up. So now it's more of a case of avoiding those situations to stop it degenerating into a battle of wills. So it's that just comes again from when we're doing the training, letting them catch with the lure training. They're coming in, they're having a fight, they're having a tussle with it, they're getting they're expending that excess energy. All of my birds are kept on swing perches as well, so they're not they're not getting frustrated. They're up on a swing. They can regain on the swing, but they're not just sitting on a block, just in the same position all the time. They're moving around. They're seeing different scenarios, different scenes. So it's just it's keeping them stimulated and keeping them activated, and trying to avoid any situation with an eagle where it comes to a point where they're coming at you and they're becoming aggressive with you. If it does degenerate to that point, something that I do with all of my eagles that is going back to some of the Kazakh methods is what I'll do is I'll wrap them up. So with the Kazakhs, when they're training their
Kazakh meaning Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of the old
like Khabib Nurmagomedov, the UFC champion, Khabib from Kazakhstan.
I don't know. I don't know if he's an eagle falconer, but yeah.
He's from Kazakhstan,
so,
though.
Again, different algorithms. But.
He's arguably the best UFC fighter in the world, best combat athlete in the world. So he's from Kazakhstan, and they have a specific method. And
those guys, when they're traveling their eagles, because obviously they're going on horseback everywhere. So they get, they'll get their eagles used to being wrapped up, swaddled up, and then put on the horse. So they're not just riding it on the fist and exhausting it because it's being driven like that, because it's being ridden like that.
Okay, so wait, I'm so sorry to interrupt you again. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you say swaddled, I think of my 1.5-year-old child. The swaddling, like the literal definition, like swaddling, like you're swaddling the bird in like a blanket or something like that, keeping it kind of confined.
That's what they do. Yeah. So they'll wrap it up like that, and then carry it like that. So it's an easier way to transport the eagle. But I do that. I'll run through that process when I'm training my young eagles, and I do it a little bit with the goshawks as well. So with the young goshawks, I'll pick them up. I'll put my fingers around their legs, pick them up like that, and carry them around like that. So they're sort of down on their hocks. And just get them used to being manhandled in certain ways. So
are they hooded or not hooded?
No, unhooded.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can do it unhooded. You can do it hooded or unhooded. But what I'll do with the eagles is, I'll pick them up, and again, if we're not hunting or if we're not flying or if we're not exercising, then we'll bowl feed them. And then part of the bowl feeding process is sometimes they might get bowl fed on the fist. So you'll have the food broken up into small pieces in like a soup in lots of water, so you hydrate them as well. But it's also to stop them, getting involved and throwing their face in there and just grabbing big chunks. It just stops, it creates better manners. And I'll do that with the goshawks as well. So we'll feed them out of a water bowl with the food in there, broken up into little pieces, just to stop them being silly, because they'll go in there really keenly to start with, and then they don't like it because there's a lot of water going down, and they're sort of sniffing and spitting and whatever else. So we'll do that with the eagles. But what I'll get all of my eagles used to is to be picked up, and then I'll pick them up, I'll take them off the fist, wrap them on, bring my hand over the top, wrap them up, take the legs like that, and then I can hold them under my arm, hooded or unhooded. I can bowl feed them like that under the arm. And then if we ever get into, a situation, so sometimes when we're flying in mountain areas or whatever else, the wind can be that bad that you physically can't stand up. And then, if we're done flying or whatever else, the eagles can cope with amazing winds. When you're up on the mountains, you can let them off in almost gale force winds. But if you've got a long walk back, or if I've got a long journey on the Argo to get back to the truck, rather than exhausting the bird, I'll wrap it up, put it under my arm, and head back to the truck that way, because it just stops them being battered around in the wind when they're on the fist. And then exactly the same way, if that eagle comes in, or it starts, you start to have a situation that's deteriorating with temperament and attitude or whatever else, then the quickest way to diffuse that is I'll grab them up, put them back under my arm, hood on, and just diffuse the situation. It's not you're not threatening it, but you're putting them in a position as if in exactly the same scenario as if it was if they were fighting with their mother and father, or fighting with their parents. Those parent birds would come in, grab hold of foot to foot, and then push them down. And then it's just they realize, okay, I'm in a vulnerable position. We're done.
So the whole, the more I fly goshawks and the more I talk to people like yourself that are very knowledgeable, the whole concept of there is no such thing as negative reinforcement with goshawks or even eagles is just like a lie, basically.
Completely. Every animal has negative reinforcement in its life. Every bird, every animal, every human, we're all stimulated by negative reinforcement. And I think this is a big problem that has come about. I think it's just the misconception of negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement. If it's being done in a cruel way, then it's obviously not a method that we want to use. But if you're bringing it into your training regime as a tool that is not as a stressor necessarily, because if anything, it just calms the situation. If those eagles are perfectly happy to be, in that, or sorry, those birds are perfectly happy for me to do that in the general day-to-day running of things, because we're habituating them to that situation. And then when if we do end up in a very stressful situation, then it's something that when they're there, they may make a kick and fuss for 30 seconds, and then it's just like, oh, okay, can't do anything, and you've got their feet out of the gameplay. You're not battling with it. You're not forcing the situation. You're not destroying your relationship with it. You're not destroying the bond that you built with it. It's just a situation where the bird there is in a position that, okay, I can't do anything about it. It's, that's it.
And what are you actually using to restrain it? Do you have custom casting jackets, or using a towel?
No. That's literally just taking, by the legs. Again, it's, don't get me wrong. Unless you see it, unless you play with it, I wouldn't advise people doing it. I'm just talking about my methodology that I've been using, because if you get it wrong, you could end up in a world that you don't want to be in. All I'm talking about is my methods here, and I'm not encouraging people to use these methods. All I'm saying is these are the methods that I've evolved, and they're a slight take on very old traditional methods of falconry.
Gotcha. So in Kazakhstan, they're physically wrapping it. You are just
so they'll take their eagle and they'll swaddle it, they'll wrap it, and then they can put it in their saddle, they can move with it, they can transport it, they can travel with it. And again, when we're training when we're training the birds, when we're bringing them up and working with them, then I'll just get them used to being handled in that way, get them habituated to different handling techniques. And then, as we're going on, it just allows us to use that for, the purposes that we require if we end up with a situation that's deteriorating. But we're not using a casting jacket or anything like that. It's literally just taking them off the fist by the legs, arm goes over the wings, pull them in, and you're holding them against your body. So they're in that area there, and
you ever
holding them in like that.
Punch them in the face when you got them like that?
Headbutt.
In America, we have a really, it's a very well-known technique with imprint goshawks, and it's called the windmill. I don't know if you guys are
I've heard of the windmill. Actually, I think I've seen it on video. So,
the windmill is a international phenomenon. But no, in all seriousness, though, it's so funny that you're bringing up this subject, because I thought that I was like a terrible falconer, like a bad person, somebody who has.
You are. Don't get it twisted. Okay.
You're probably right, but like I have anger management problems. When I have like a new imprint, especially like an albitus bird that seems to have, they have very less fear and stuff like that. They're more inclined to aggression. And, we're doing exercises early and I may make in too quickly and the bird decides that I'm going to leave the carcass and go right to your face. I thought that I was a bad falconer, bad person to block the attack to my face and pin the bird to the ground for like 4 seconds, 5 seconds and hold them there. And that was just an outburst of anger. But in my mind, I justified it. And maybe this is just a personality trait that I have where I justified it as, well, the parents wouldn't allow this to happen in the wild either. And and it's funny because and I hesitate to even bring it up on the show for like the layman, new falconer to hear. But like every time that I did that, like I had this 3/4 albitus, 1/4 finish. And, early on in the training, she went for my face, like just North Americans, like, we discussed, North Americans, they'll go for your feet before they go for your face.
Nice. Yeah.
The Finnish and albitus birds, they seem to just skip the feet and go straight for the face.
Yeah.
And I found, flying many different albitus crosses where when they go for the face, if I just intercept them midair, pin them to the ground, hold them there for a 5-second count, they will never do it again.
Yeah.
And it's like,
exactly.
It's like negative reinforcement, like never do any negative reinforcement. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that like all the time. But when they do that, like, I can't allow that to happen. Am I wrong for doing that? I always kind of like ask myself that question. But the evidence of me doing that was the bird never doing that again.
Yeah, exactly.
So but it's like you said, you don't even want to bring it up because you don't want somebody to start doing that who doesn't know the nuances or whatever behavioral of your bird and ruin your bird from grabbing it.
No, exactly. Because I mean, there's all sorts of connotations on, pinning your bird to the floor, isn't there? So you've got to be so careful with that. That all of this comes with big caveats. But it's just understanding. But as you said, a parent bird is not going to put up with that behavior. A parent bird is going to address that. It's exactly the same as in dog training. You wouldn't, if your puppy snaps at you, your puppy, comes at you. I mean, okay, dog behavior is very different from bird behavior, but it's running along the same sort of line. There's got to be a reaction to, or there has got to be a reaction to that action.
100%. So,
what I don't ever want to see, and what I've always tried to avoid, is that scenario where you've got an imprint bird that is revved up, that's coming at you, and then you're sort of trying to batter it away, and it's going to the floor, then coming back, going to the floor, and it just ends up in a horrendous situation. That if that is a situation to avoid, but if you can avoid that situation, not by causing torment or not by causing harm, but just by nullifying that situation and creating an environment where they can't do anything, then it just creates that moment of calm. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't even know how to say this correctly, but like the whole idea of just only positive reinforcement, and that gets falconers really far in falconry, is just positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
But when you have a bird that like I was talking to a falconer up in Alaska today on the phone, and he has an apprentice, and the apprentice has a red tail, and he was calling it to the glove nonstop, to tidbits to the glove. And then it got to the point where if he didn't have a tidbit, the bird didn't care. The bird was smacking him in the back of the head and trying to like give me my tidbit. Yeah. And the falconer didn't do this, but I have seen this where a falconer will put a tidbit on the glove and be like, oh, let go, and like reach up behind their head and give the bird the tidbit and
reward it. Yeah.
Essentially trade the bird off of your skull. And it's like you're literally just training the bird to do that. So the negative reinforcement, and we're doing negative reinforcement constantly, even with a new red tail, you're doing negative reinforcement. If the bird misses a squirrel, I mean, maybe you are, maybe you're not, but if your bird flies like garbage and misses a squirrel or misses a hare, misses a rabbit, flies like crap, clearly just didn't put in the effort and misses it. If you just throw out a carcass or a lure and the bird crops up you're just teaching the bird to fly like garbage and you're going to get a reward. So
exactly. Yeah.
So to simply, the bird definitely needs to eat, but to pick the bird up, remove it from the field, and then give it its feeding later, it's still going to reinforce its negative, but it's still getting its reward later. You're going to negatively enforce that if you fly like garbage, you're not getting fed, but you're still going to eat later. It's just like you said, it's a nuanced view on falconry, but it's like you can't it's almost like you don't want to tell people about it until they're ready to hear about it, because it could become bad very quickly.
You've got to have good instincts to do it.
Correct. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not something that you'd want, a beginner, an apprentice, or something like that contemplating. But it's you've got, and again, it doesn't work. It wouldn't work for all birds. It's only in certain circumstances with certain species. With certain birds that have been raised in certain ways. If you did that to certain other birds, you would just completely destroy it. But when you're talking about an imprint eagle, or when you're talking about an imprint goshawk, that's a very different creature.
Yeah, correct. So the bird I have out in my mew, sorry, Aaron, but the bird I have out in my mew right now, a lot of fear. It's somewhere between an imprint and a passage bird. It has like this slight aggressive tendencies, but it's very fearful. If it were to just decide to go for my face one day and I grabbed it and pinned it to the ground, that bird would be it would be over. That bird would want nothing to do with me. So I'm very much aware that this bird has this, and I'm almost like encouraging the aggression to kind of like mask the fear that it has of me, but then not let it push the aggression to a certain point. You know what I mean? I'm trying to I'm trying to give it like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to take anything from you. If you want to grab me a little bit, if you want to show a little bit, that's fine. But like a straight up, like zero fear, hardcore imprint, if they're going for you, like in an aggressive way, I think a little bit of like physical restraint, I don't think that's going to hurt the bird. It's going to kind of teach the bird to kind of stop.
But but in that scenario, you've picked up on the cue. That is exactly what it would be doing to its parent. And there's nothing wrong then in that scenario by reacting the same way as a parent bird would do.
That turned into much more than, in a great way, than I expected. So thank you for that. But the dumbed down, like juicy, gossipy question that I had wrapped up in all of that important stuff was, how bad have you ever been injured by an eagle?
I've had a couple of injuries, but again, it's been my own fault.
Have you ever been to the hospital because of an eagle?
Yeah.
You have?
Unfortunately.
Is this something you don't want to talk about?
No, twice. No, one time it was completely my fault. We were at the end of a trip up in Scotland, and we were up on the Highlands. Fantastic day. And as I always do, I wanted to go for another hare, so I wasn't content with however many we'd got in the bag. So it just
good to know that crosses cultures.
Sorry,
it's good to know that urge to go for one more. That's it. I mean, you'll always find me out there until the very last light, just pushing the envelope. But anyway, so the mountain hares, the white hares, will use holes. So they will excavate holes, and they will use them in cases of bad weather or to evade predators. So they will use a hole. Unlike brown hares, I don't know if the jackrabbits do the same, but anyway, so mountain hares, blue hares will hit holes if they need to. And I've been flying the baby and Cappy that day. I think it was I don't know how many hares we'd caught that day, but we'd done okay. And then went for one last flight, and the dogs pointed a hare, and we ran the sort of bank from where we were. A few hundred yards on, we knew there were a few holes. Anyway, hare went, slip baby, off he went, tanking in like that. And he went steaming in and hit this hare, and he hit this hare just as it was going down the hole.
Anyway, he caught it, but he literally just caught it by the back legs, and because the hair was on its way down the hole. And I just went in, and baby on a kill is absolutely no bother at all. I can do anything with him. You can go in there, open the hair up barehanded, as I say, pull the heart out, pull the lungs out. You can hand feed him with the heart and lungs, and do what you like with him. Absolutely no problem. Anyway, so I went there, and you could see he was getting dragged. At the entry to this hole, his wings were sort of spread as he was getting sort of battered around. So I went in, put my hand down to pull the hair out, but I struggled to get hold of it. But as I put my hand down, I put it down over his feet and then grabbed the hair up around the shoulder area. And then didn't think, and then I pulled the hair out. As I pulled the hair out, it then jumped and started screaming again. I had hold of it still, and then baby just readjusted his footing to grab the head, because again, in the training, they as soon as they can get to the head, they'll just readjust their footing up and on. As he did that, my hand was obviously in between his foot and the hair, and I ended up with him, putting his talons in. One went through, one went in and embedded itself down into the bone, and then the other toes ended up all over the place. Anyway, didn't think anything of it. Thought it was going to be absolutely fine. Pulled it out, packed it with a bit of snow, and then did the 10 hours drive home. Back to Kent. Took a couple of paracetamol and went to bed. Needless to say, because it was covered in blood and mud and everything else from the hole, then got massively infected and then had to go to hospital and have all the necrotic flesh cut out. So that was the worst one. But again, not the eagle's fault.
No, not the eagle's fault at all.
No, just the falconer being a dumbass.
So those stories of like an eagle grabbing somebody under the jaw and the face never happened to you, huh?
I've had eagles come in at me, luckily, even for a fat wobbly fella, I've been quick enough to avoid contact. But every time that I've ended up in a scenario like that, it has been down to my mismanagement, wrong weight management, and I can't stress that enough. Weight. People think that with eagles you don't need to bother really that much with weight management, but some eagles, and again they're all individual, they're all different, but with certain eagles, I've got maybe a half, and bearing in mind you're talking about a 7.5, almost 8 pound bird. For them to be in their exact sweet spot, I might have a half an ounce window.
That's interesting. So, that's way less than I thought it would be. I was thinking half a pound.
Other eagles that you can fly in a huge weight range. Depending on time of year and what you're doing. But others not. But you'll generally find that things will start to unwind and eagles will become more badly behaved the higher in weight they are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That is such a good statement that you just made, because it's like the trap that a lot of people fall into, and myself included. When you have a bird that's acting a certain way, you're like, oh, they're too low, they're too desperate. That's why they attacked me, And it's like, no, they're actually too heavy because they don't really care about hunting. They just want to attack
exactly.
you. You got to get them 100%. Focused.
Yeah. And all of my eagles will fly with dogs. All of my imprint eagles will fly with dogs. All of my goshawks will fly with dogs. The only time that I'll ever have issues is when they're being flown heavy. You'll see it with the goshawks as well. They'll take their frustration out on the dogs. They'll go and give them a clip or whatever else. And the same with the eagles. And you'll tend to find the guys out in Europe that fly deer, flying the larger quarry species, they'll fly their eagles a lot heavier, just because they've got that pent up aggression, and they're just taken out on the quarry.
I could imagine that when I take a redtail or a goshawk or a harris hawk out with dogs, not much concern. They can't do too much to a dog, but an eagle could just kill a dog.
Oh, yeah,
you didn't handle that well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd mentioned Baby. I've seen Baby's been in multiple videos on the Field Sports channel, correct?
Yeah.
So we wanted to end it because this has been an incredible conversation, but out of respect for your time, who knows what time it is over there? Probably the wee hours of the morning, right?
Not quite there yet, but we're getting there.
So we wanted to ask you about the Field Sports channel in general, because some of our listeners out there may not be aware.
Field Sport channel. I mean, I don't know how many videos there are out there, but there's an awful lot. It covers content, from fishing, shooting, hunting, falconry, deer stalking, a whole host of different subjects. It's a weekly show that goes out. And I say it's been going. I think we've been going for about 13 years or so now. So, there's an awful lot of content. It's just based on YouTube. So, you can go in there. You can watch all of the videos and all the streams from all of the years. So, you'll. I think if you go back early enough, you'll see me actually looking fairly slim and with hair. But there's a lot of content on there. There's a lot of wonderful memories on there, and there's some fantastic sport on there as well.
Casey,
is that your YouTube channel, or are you partnered up with other people on that page? Because it's essentially like a TV show. It's not even like a YouTube channel. It's like a TV show, basically.
It's like a channel.
It is like a TV, but it's it is broadcast on YouTube. But no, it's not mine. I was approached by the guys that ran it because they were looking for content, and they knew that I did. All sorts of different things, from stalking, shooting, and falconry and whatever else. So, they came along and asked if they could sort of join me occasionally on my, following my pastimes and following what we do, and it went from there.
Yeah, I love the dude who does the news segments where he like whips his head in the camera's direction.
David, yeah.
Is he trying to be funny when he does that? When he?
Oh yeah, 100%. No, it's complete spoof.
He plays it so straight. I don't know how he's trying to be funny or not.
No, exactly. It's David's got a cracking sense of humor. It's dry British humor, my dear boy.
Yeah, which is sometimes that's lost on us here in America.
Yeah.
Unless it's like slapstick, we don't get it.
Get it exactly. No, it's got its own place over here. But as I say, it is good fun. And from our perspective, and the reason we do it is just trying to educate and just trying to bring people into the sport.
Yeah, I think you guys do a great job. It's a popular channel amongst us American falconers.
Superb. I'm glad it's got over there. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Well, a lot of us here, especially that do this type of thing, falconry, trapping, running dogs, we have a lot of respect and reverence for the British culture of doing it, of field sports. And it's, believe it or not, it's different from your traditional hunting culture here. Like I'd said earlier, there's a strong culture of hunting deer, turkey, and waterfowl. But as far as the other things, falconry, trapping, coursing, things like that, it's not mainstream. It's not common. So
no, that's it, and hopefully long may it survive. But as I say, with what you guys are doing over there, and you've just got to keep shouting about it, and we've got to keep going. But
cheers to that.
Yeah, amen. So hopefully we'll carry on. Yeah,
100%. I mean, just growing up as a young apprentice and being around Teddy Moritz, everything in terms of the dog work and stuff like that. And even to this day with Sean O'Neill, excellent episode we did with Sean about dog work. A lot of what we do, like we really just model after like the European heritage that it came from. It's like we're basing everything that we do off of like the European version, like in the quote unquote way it's supposed to be done. And that's pretty fascinating because, a lot of falconers and houndsmen over here, we think of it as like, oh, it's American, it's this and that, but like it all kind of like came from Europe at one point. So to view it in that way and like almost like pay homage to the history that it came from, And to talk to somebody like yourself that's so ingrained in it, it's almost like an honor, basically, to talk to. But, because if you think of falconry in the United States is 100 years old.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
Not even.
not even realistically, but there are, and we're going to do an episode on this. We got a guy that I know of. He's a historian. He knows about the Quakers. There was Quakers that were flying birds. What I mean? There was Quakers, like the first, people here in the United States that before it was the United States that were flying birds. So there's a tremendous history in the United States, but it was all modeled after where it came from, which was Europe, and that rich history of it. And it's weird, man. It's just very strange, you grow up as a white guy in the United States, man, you just feel like a nobody. Bro, you're just a white guy, you're just a cracker, you know what I mean? Nobody cares about you, and you get to think about this cool history that your ancestors had. And I just feel and not to get too political, but you're in America, you're made to feel that being white is wrong and your history is wrong.
Okay.
And and not that I'm coming to some kind of conclusion here, but it's it is pretty cool to know that over there in Europe, I'm a very white person. It's cool to know that people in Europe were you guys have been flying birds for way longer than us. You have way more of a knowledge base, even the oral history of just the way things are done. Grabbing stuff from Kazakhstan and stuff like that. It's very fascinating stuff, man. And
I think that's the thing with all of falconry. It's falconry especially, but with all field sports, it is fascinating. And with that history, you've got forward thinking. You can take inspiration from learning from the now, but you've got such a bank of historical practices that you can still learn from as well. And I think that's the wonderful thing with this game is the learning curve never stops. When you can never stop improving your art. And improving what you can achieve. And that's just proven year on year. You can strive. You can always strive to improve on what you're doing, and very often you'll succeed. By just learning something, and you can learn from anybody. It could be a guy that's only been practicing for a few years' time that's come from it with a slightly different perspective, and has achieved something absolutely amazing, or it could be from historical text, or from learning from an old Kazakh that that I met when I was visiting an Austrian field meet. So, that it's there. The information is there, but you've just got to get out and have these conversations, haven't you?
Well said. Thank you, Roy. We sincerely appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on.
No problem at all. Lovely. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, it was a cracking episode.
Wonderful,
yeah, we really
wonderful.
Appreciate it, man. Seriously, you may not think of yourself as this, but you're a big deal, and we appreciate your time and coming on the show. And this was me and Aaron were talking about it. We were, rudely texting each other during the show. This was one of the best episodes that we've produced, and we really appreciate your time. Seriously, thank you, Roy.
No problem at all. But no, as I say, thank you for having me.